council will hold a public hearing to consider repeal of the following. 1, Chapter 2, Article 6, alternates to Board of Finance. 2, Chapter 2, Article 17, Section 2161, membership. 3, Chapter 16, Article 5, Zoning Commission, from the Code of Ordinances as authorized by Chapter 98 of the Connecticut General Statutes at New Milford Town Hall, 10 Main Street, New Milford, Connecticut, on December 10th, 2018, at 6:55 p.m. in the E. Paul Martin Room, dated New Milford, Connecticut, this 27th day of November 2018. Pete Bass, Mayor.
Thank you, Matt. Can you opine on the 3 repeals?
I would be happy.
Delete language?
I would be happy to. So as Mayor said, the new charter took effect on December 6th. We are in the process of having that charter published. All council members have a copy of the newly approved charter tonight. And these 3, if you remember, all of the alternates on boards and commissions were moved to a membership of 3. The current alternates to Board of Finance ordinance only provides for 2. The charter supersedes that, so this ordinance could no longer be enforced for that reason. The second one is membership, and it actually pertains to membership on the 9/11 Commission, which was a 2-year term. They are now a 4-year term pursuant to all appointed boards being 4-year terms in the town charter. And so this next one is interesting. Zoning Commission, people thought maybe a repeal of this ordinance was getting rid of the Zoning Commission. Well, actually, no. The only part of the Zoning Commission that was left in ordinances, which was authorizing the Board of Selectmen, the precursor to the Town Council, which the Town Council serves as the equivalent of, to put 3 alternates on the Zoning Commission. Those 3 alternates are now in the town charter, so there's no longer a need for an ordinance to provide for them. So that's what this is all about. These ordinances are what's called stale now in legal terms, so they're before the Town Council tonight for repeal.
Does anyone from the council have any questions to Attorney Grimes? Does anyone from the public have any questions on these to Attorney Grimes? Would any council member like to make a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The public hearing is now closed. As a reminder, the town council has 45 days to take up these ordinances, and we're going to adjourn this to our regular town council meeting, which will be in about 1 minute. Could you pass these down? And for the pledge? Mr. Nahom, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could all stand for a moment of silence in memory of President Bush. Thank you. Walter, do we have any public comments, sir?
Pat Erickson, please.
Pat Erickson, 65 Buckingham Road, New Milford, Connecticut. I am a member of the Community Center Committee, but I am here speaking on my own accord. This has no bearing with the Community Center themselves, the committee. They don't know I'm speaking. Just so you know, this is not my booster seat. This is my book of all the files that I have since I've been serving on the committee. So we are really trying to get some work done. I have a very bad back. I sit through these meetings by taking drugs to get through them and putting on painkillers but I don't know if it's more excruciatingly painful for the mental anguish I'm feeling now of frustration or actually my spinal fusion. We put together a survey that was not acceptable to the town council. Last meeting, Greg Mullen tried to tell everybody here that he had gone out and gotten 4 survey estimates. Nobody would let him speak. It wasn't acceptable. You said to us, you wanted a professional survey. We came before you and asked for a professional survey. And we're getting nowhere. And it is extremely frustrating. The other night we sat there for 3 hours with no heat. And I was so frustrated, I said, if the town council cannot give us insight as to what they actually want from us, let's do our own survey. If you cannot fund a survey, I'm asking you to please, as a member of the public, not as a member of the committee, please formulate what it is that will be acceptable to you, how we can put a footprint on this survey. I checked with an IT specialist. There is a way of locking it down so it can only be taken once. I would suggest that we put names and addresses so we know the people have taken it. And if you're not willing to fund a survey, at least give us enough of a budget that we can do a mailing to get out to the public, and we will do whatever it takes diligently, no matter how many hours it takes, to do what we've been asked to do. And that is to find out is if this town wants a community center, and if they do, where and what the costs will be. And if you would also provide input on what you'd like on the survey if you want us to do it, that would be extremely helpful. But right now, we have spent almost a year. We have, I believe, 3 meetings left. And I hate to see all the hours and work that we have put into it, even though it appears that nobody thinks we're doing anything, to be utilized. Because at the end of the day, folks, somebody has to make this decision, whether it be us or you. And God bless you. I don't know how you do them all, because I wouldn't want your jobs for all the money in China. I really wouldn't. You're all volunteers. You do an outstanding job. I have found from this committee that it is gut-wrenching, because when you've got no money and you've got one side of the fence that wants one thing and another side that wants another, there's no middle ground. So what I'm asking you tonight, please, if you decide against funding this, give us some direction so we can go forward and do what you've charged us to do, which is give you some answers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Mike Sinello, please.
All right, so everyone can follow along. Got copies for everybody. All right. So in regards to item 10 on the agenda tonight, let me just start by saying the motion that is on the floor, or was on the floor, depending on how you read Chapter 46 of Robert's Rules, is one I would not support, and that I'll offer 2 motions instead that I would support. 1, motion to request for proposal market research as to the definition of need for and desire for a community center as the residents of New Milford see fit. Or 2, to quote what was said at the last meeting, motion to request for proposal market research to define the public perception of a community center and what features the public would like included. I'm sure Attorney Grimes can opine as to whether or not these are actually legal and valid RFPs. For those that haven't seen the videos I've produced on the topic, I'll briefly explain the advantages of framing the motion in this manner, and then I'll make the case for these motions. For a more comprehensive explanation for those who have the ability to do so, search for Michael Sinello on Facebook, and the first 2 videos I posted should do the topic a great deal of service. First, the major advantage of these motions over the one on the floor is that by framing the motion in the manner I have, you preclude the necessity to establish a price and a funding source. This means that you, 1, don't reveal your hand to competitive bidders. 2, leave on the floor the possibility of getting either a greatly reduced fee or the possibility of some, say, startup consulting firm from doing the work in exchange exclusively for the publicity this project would gain them and a written recommendation. Or 3, you leave on the floor the possibility of discovering a funding source that winds up costing the town nothing at net. For example, You have someone on the books right now in this building whose sole job it is to seek grants for projects of exactly this ilk. You may also, for example, find folks like me who are willing to pledge, in my case, $100 of their own money to voluntarily contribute to the project. For the record, for those who are as confident in their conclusions as I am, and are thus willing to join me in putting their money where their mouth is, I'll be passing around a pledge sheet should the motion pass. Also, it should be noted that since this question has been raised, of course a governing body has the right to raise funds. Of course, a governing body that has the right to raise funds by force has the right to raise funds through voluntary contributions. We see this with bike donations to the youth agency, with trash can and bench donations to the Lindeming project, with direct monetary donations to the library modernization project, and with grants from the private sector for public projects, which happen all the time. Second, the study has value, as it will do the one thing we have not done, which is properly define a community center. To this point, your own town attorney rightly couldn't even provide a vague legal definition of community center. To quickly address one fallacy, you can't know the price of a thing until you know what the thing is. Price is a dependent variable. The thing is the independent variable. We wouldn't pay a dime to get, for example, AIDS, but we would gladly bond tens of millions of dollars at a usurious rate for $1 billion check made out to the town of Milford by Bill Gates. The reason I want this information revealed is because I'm absolutely certain, if it has any validity, that it will only produce one result, which will absolutely vindicate, and I realize it's political suicide to say so, listing the property and gaining millions of dollars in capital that could thus be spent on an enormous list of projects without bonding. But that's not the point. If you agree with me, you want this information revealed. If you don't agree with me, you still want the information revealed because it would only justify your conclusions on this giant elephant in the room, and it would do so right here and now. And for those still on the fence, this should certainly help bring you closer to a proper conclusion. Perhaps $20,000 is not the appropriate price. And on that matter, I tend to agree. But no matter what side of the aisle you stand on in regards to the long-term plan with Pettibone, you should still be in support of the motions I presented, and you should agree that there is at least some value in obtaining this information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Tim Lattis, please.
Hello, my name is Tim Latta, 66 Chernisky Road. I'm here to talk about the expansion of the bridge on Chernisky Road and to voice my opinion against it. And just a few anecdotes about why. We've lived on Chernisky Road now for 22 years, and we like the fact that it's a scenic road. But even as a scenic road, we have a couple of kids. We get nervous about the traffic already racing through there. We're on kind of a straightaway. One of the only things that slows down traffic at all is the idea that there is a one-lane bridge a little bit further down the road from our house. But over the years, we've kind of told our kids that they can't play kind of even in the side yard of our house. We're one of the closest houses to the road. Our front door is about 20 feet from the middle of the road. And so already we're pretty close, but we've taken that extra precaution to tell them that they can't play anywhere, even on the side yard, because already in the time we've lived there, 3 cars have come off that road that were racing down the straightaway, one passing another car with the double yellow line. 3 of them have ended up going through our mailbox, through our plantings, landing on our stone wall, and one of them into our side yard. My son has to take the bus right there at the corner of Frenchman's and Chernisky. His bus driver gets angry at him because he will not cross the road if he sees a car coming or hears a car coming at all. So his bus driver gets angry and says, "Just come on." And he doesn't do it because cars will race around the stopped buses on Chernisky Road because they don't see them right away. They come up over the hill there and then they just are racing down the road. So for me, it's really a safety issue. We love the fact that it's a scenic road, and we like the fact that there aren't big 18-wheeler trucks coming through there on a regular basis. But the main issue for us is a real safety issue, and that's something that I wanted to talk about and voice my concern. And I would love to keep the bridge the way it is, just to maintain that issue, that little bit of safety that we have, that buffer zone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks.
Tim. Adrian Enriquez, please.
I'll make everybody a copy of the scenic road ordinance. Everybody has those out. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. Bear with me, I'm going to read these because I don't have a good memory. To the Town Council, we understand there's a proposal to be put forward this evening regarding the alteration of the Chernisky Road Bridge. As you know, Chernisky Road is a designated scenic road by ordinance, and Chapter 17A of the Scenic Road Preservation Ordinance reads, "The scenic and rural roads of New Milford are cherished and irreplaceable resources essential to the preservation of New Milford's rural heritage. The scenic values of some rural roads in New Milford have been destroyed or are in danger of destruction because of past or potential alterations to their right-of-way. Such alterations have had and could continue to have an adverse impact on the quality of New Milford's aesthetic and historic environment, an environment that is of great benefit to residents and residents alike. Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7-149A, found that the preservation and protection of the scenic or historic values of rural roads is essential to the welfare of the people of Connecticut. It is a purpose of this chapter to balance the need to preserve the scenic and rural values of these roads with the need to keep them in good and sufficient repair and passable condition. We'd like to bring to your attention that any alteration of a scenic road must adhere to the ordinance Section F. The alteration or improvement of a designated scenic road shall be determined by the Town Council. Any proposal for alteration or improvement, whether by public or private applicant, shall be submitted to the Town Council along with a suitable map showing in detail the proposed alteration or improvement. At its next regularly scheduled meeting, not tonight, next regularly scheduled meeting after submission of the proposal, the Town Council shall refer the proposal to the Planning Commission, and then the mayor, with the approval of the council, shall, pursuant to charter, appoint a committee to advise the Town Council on the alterations or improvements being proposed and any alternative solutions. And you'll find in those ordinances the instructions for how the committee is supposed to be made up. The rules for appointing this committee must follow those set forth in the ordinance. Speaking tonight for the landowners of Chernisky Road who are opposed to the two-lane bridge proposed by Public Works, we want to make you aware that unless you follow the ordinance procedures, we are prepared to seek legal counsel to enforce this ordinance. Now I'm going to read my own letter, because I feel this is important to give you the background of what's been going on. Residents of Chernisky Road have met with Public Works or the town engineer 3 times beginning January 31, 2018. We also met with the Roads Committee on July 17. At the first meeting, the town engineer was open to our suggestions and concerns about keeping the bridge one lane. He said it was possible to do that and understood our complaints about the high speeds and increasing traffic of cars and trucks. He saw it firsthand as he stood by the bridge with us. Chernisky Road's one-lane bridge at the bottom of a hill slows down the traffic. Mr. Stanton has only been able to document 1 accident on the bridge, while there have been other accidents to the west and the east of the bridge over the years. We learned this at the November 14th meeting, which I believe you were there, Mr. Bass.
Yes, ma'am.
Google Maps is now enabling 18-wheeler trucks to travel this narrow, winding road. They are getting stuck on hairpin turns on Barker and also on the other side of Chernisky. These are not revealed by Google, so the truck drivers have no idea. I've been stuck behind the trucks and had to wait 15 minutes while they did a 20-point turn to get out of the hairpin turns. This is also happening on nearby Findlay Road in Washington, as confirmed by the first selectman, Mr. Lyons. The Public Works Director has told us things that do not fit with the facts provided by the State of Connecticut Division of Bridges. The state says, this road, Chernisky, appears on a state map of minor collector roads, minor, but that does not overrule the scenic road ordinance, nor does it mean that the bridge must become a 2-lane bridge. There is no state funding for the Chernisky Road Bridge, none. This bridge is not even on CT DOT's list and therefore there are no state guidelines that oversee the design of this bridge, contrary to what we were told by the Public Works Director and the town engineer at the second meeting on the bridge this summer. The State Division of Bridges was appalled, and I'm not kidding when they said they were appalled.
Adrian, you have 1 minute,
Okay,
please.
these town employees' unwillingness to consider our concerns is what appalled them. The state said Public Works should listen to and work with us for a mutually agreeable solution. They said there's no reason why this cannot remain a one-lane bridge. At the November 14 meeting, which included Mayor Bass, Public Works Zarba, Town Engineer Stanton, and the engineer hired to design the bridge, Mr. Zarba said he had other plans for this road, but would not divulge what those plans were. Some people suspect he's trying to do an east-west connector, which we are totally opposed to. And so is the town of Kent, and so is the town of Washington. The town council member, Michael Gold, lives across the street from another bridge, the one at West Meeting House and Mariel Road. That's been withdrawn for redesign, but Mr. Zarba would not tell us why. With all due respect, Mr. Gold, we agree with you. It was a terrible design. I'm glad it's been withdrawn. It was dangerous. So why are bridges being rushed when many people are not satisfied with the designs or with Public Works' refusal to listen to us? Are safety considerations being overlooked? And if so, that's a recipe for disaster down the road. So I hope you carefully consider what's going on with all the money that's been bonded for these bridges, because if you do them wrong, everyone's going to suffer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Adrian, do you have that so we can refer to that later when we're questioning?
I gave it to the secretary.
Thank you.
Which one
Jim?
The letter, wait, hold on, the letter, not the ordinance. Do you have the letter as well?
Yeah, can I just look at
Yes.
I wanted to take pictures. so we
And
can
there's
refer to
letters
it.
from 2 other residents included in there.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
Good evening, James Furlow, 69 Hilltop View Road. I'm also Chief of Waterwitch Hose Company Number 2. I'm here to talk to you very briefly about the alarm ordinance. There was, I believe, some misinformation in the newspaper the other day. The fire department does not put anybody on a no-call list. We respond to all calls, and that has been corrected in the alarm ordinance that's coming before you, as it was requested from the fire department and requested by this group. But most important, this alarm ordinance is a compliance tool that we use. We do not use it to collect money. We do not collect a lot of money with this. It's been in place for many years, and we've probably collected less than $500 on the thing. What it does do, it gives us a structure upon which we could potentially find people, and once they get to that point, they can then come forward and spend the money on correcting the problem other than giving it to the town. We're looking at getting compliance with this. In a 2016 article out called The Unwanted Conundrum about smoke detectors and things like that, there's 2 different points in there. One says there's a lack of urgency upon the part of the owners to maintain their systems. And a second quote coming out of that is, when the fire department makes them fix it, that's when they will fix it. Those are why we have the ordinance in place. The alarm ordinance was originally put in place because we were running into a problem with a property owner. It says, you have no right to tell me to fix my alarm system and continue to go off. That was many years ago. This particular alarm ordinance has worked very well. And also in the alarm ordinance it specifically refers to a report by the fire officer or police officer in it. So it gives the fire departments the ability to pick and choose which ones we find annoyance alarms or non-annoyance alarms by the people that are actually going out to these alarms. And I would like to thank you very much for listening to me. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Jim. Joe Q, please. 87 Boardman.
Good evening, everyone. Joe Quarante, 87 Boardman Road. I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things tonight, but most importantly, I brought Santa a new hat, because he wasn't wearing a hat. It's kind of stuffy in here, so here we go. It's got a button on the side.
Got a button on the side? And if-
Merry Christmas.
I'm not sure what list I'm going to put you on.
I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. First thing I want to talk to you about, just press the button again. Okay. As tree warden of the town of New Milford, I'm pleased to announce that we have we've marked 130 trees since the turn of the budget, which is July 31st, all of which those trees have been cut, and they've been cut in a very timely manner. The assistant tree warden and myself are currently out continuing to mark trees, and I think at this point, really the only thing that stuns us is finances. So we've done just about everything that we can possibly do with the money that we have. We have a system in place now that seems to be working very well with collaboration with the Department of Public Works and the mayor. We utilize a program called Cartograph. The trees come in to DPW, their main office. They're assigned a number, and they're entered into the computer, and then those trees are able to be tracked and their progress noted right down to the removal of the tree and the contractor that removed them. So trees have made significant progress, so I thought you'd be happy to hear that. Secondly, I'm here tonight as a taxpayer to support the $25,000 for the fire department, putting their $25,000 back into the capital expenditure, the budget for their trucks. I've been involved in the fire service, and I know how difficult it is to maintain those trucks and the expenses that are incurred, and the NFPA and ANSI regulations that go along with that maintenance and replacement of trucks. So I support that $25,000 going back to the fire department if in fact we can afford that. Last but not least, and don't quote me on the exact amount, if it's 20,000 or 18,200 or whatever it is, the number that the John Pettibone Community Center Committee, is that right? Okay. Has requested for a survey, okay? And I cringe on the fact that every time we talk about something, we have to spend another $20 or $30 or $50,000 for a survey, okay? But it's obviously a hot topic, and the individuals that we put on that committee feel as though that's something that they need to make accurate decisions and to let the public understand which direction we should head. Then I support it. I'd like to add to that once all of the facts have been generated and vetted, that I'd like to see it go to public referendum. I thought that the way that the library was handled was great. I commend the committee for that, the commission here. I supported the library, and I thought that the process was great, and I haven't heard a single complaint since. It passed with flying colors, and I thought that was good. So other than that, happy holidays. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Jeff McBrady, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff McBride, 288 Kent Road. I'm hoping the timekeeper will allow me enough time to read this without having to rush through it. I respect Mrs. Erickson's concerns about the community center and the $20,000 they may need to do the study. And if they don't get it, then they can research it and try to figure it out their own way. But from my point of view, we do not need the community center now. We got to figure out where we're getting money to pay for the school roofs for the high school and Sarah Noble Intermediate School, as well as new boilers for the Lillis building, and continued road work, and numerous other things such as the fire department asking for more money that is not budgeted, which are absolute necessities. When you think of the money for this study is going to come from, there is no money tree farm in the back of this town hall. We have lived without a community center for decades, and a while longer will not make the difference if we even need it. If it was up to me, I would say to heck with the community center. See, we cannot continue down the road like this so the liberals in town can continue to promote their things that need to be on the back burner. This is the old democratic way of getting things done. Approved useless stuff has put the serious stuff on the back burner for years. Wake up, please. Open your eyes, look around and see all the stuff that was left on the table by the far left dysfunctional and out-of-touch liberals in the past administration. Look at the money we're going to have to spend because the former administration fired the contractor for Century Brass cleanup, and we are left with a monumental mess that is presently in litigation, and there has been millions wasted on this already, and many more thousands will be spent before this is over. And if the town loses in court, then we are talking millions. There was $250,000 just approved at the last meeting, and it comes from the reserve fund. And this aggravates me. This is a waste management fund, and we shouldn't be touching this, period. There's no need for this to have happened. If the previous administrations, and I'm going back farther than the last administration, if this would have been nipped in the bud then, okay, and the right steps taken, we wouldn't be wasting this $250,000 that went to executive decision last meeting. This is a gross waste of taxpayer money, from my perspective. Okay, and it was approved at the last meeting. It came from the reserve fund, and this is robbing the people of this town. If you folks pass this community center issue, which comes from a committee that is not doing what they were told when it was created. They were instructed by the mayor to do a study and give their final results to the town council, and they are doing the exact opposite here. And if you allow this to happen without knowing where the money is coming from, then you have let the taxpayer down, and I wasted my vote and my confidence in all of you. This committee was to evaluate the future of JPS and not create more headaches for all of us. You are not doing your job in the best interest of the people anymore if you continue this way and allow the committee to control you. We have attorneys and we have the knowledge within the town to do our own study, and if you can't see that, then you're not doing research, and again, you're not doing the job you got elected to do, again, failing the people of New Milford. Like I said, we already spent $250,000 for legal fees fighting the Century Brass issue. You people need to wake up and look beyond your nose. Look at the millions and millions we'll need to catch up on roads because the previous administrations didn't nip it in the bud. And the last administration denied DPW $2.2 million for 2 years to work on the roads. And now we're in a bonded situation, wasting money, nothing, and the taxpayers, we have to feel the brunt of this stupidity. All the while bowing down to like the Board of Education and giving them $60+ million a year for the last 3 years and driving taxes up. Where the heck do folks think that the taxpayer is going to generate their money from? Again, is a money tree in their backyard as well? You folks really need to take a hard look at the last several Board of Education requests and see the monumental percent increases that the town council has allowed because research was not properly done. Now, since you have not done the work, I'll be giving you some examples of where the Board of Education has taken the town and the taxpayers to the bank and back in the upcoming weeks ahead. I do not want to see another budget passed or money spent foolishly in this town until all the facts are in and the Board of Education and issues presented to you are necessary and the Board of Education's request research and wise decisions made. We need to put them on the back burner pedestal and made to answer for their monumental increases and have proper justification. We have to stop the useless and needless waste of taxpayer money. This is going to drive me and my family to leave this town if you continue the way of this land because I can't afford it anymore. My mortgage and my homeowner's insurance and my property taxes are more than my Social Security that I get now. I can't live that way any longer in this town. I don't believe I can. So please take all of this into serious consideration. I'm asking you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Guy Peterson, please.
Good evening, council members and mayor. My name is Guy Peterson. I live at 3 Chernisky Road. I used to come to these meetings on a fairly regular basis, not so much in the last 10 years or so. Some of the same subjects are still there. I'm very proud of Mariol. We've done a lot to keep it as a rural part of town. I have a garden out in the front of my house, a perennial garden, and people stop there during the summer, I guess every weekend, and say thanks for doing that, because it makes it a better day. We've tried to keep that part of town in a more or less rural way. We haven't stopped development. There have been houses put up here and there that fortunately mostly blend into things. But we've also protected a lot of land for other people in town, in the state, in the region to enjoy, and they do. One of the things about Chernisky Road that helps to keep it that way is that it was designated as a scenic road when the ordinance was first established in town. I was involved, as was my wife and others, in trying to really push for the scenic road ordinance to be adopted. At the time, one of the things that happened, which was really, I think, a very sad moment in the history of our town, at least in my history of the town. Walter Rogg was representing us in the legislature, and Walter went to the committee that was responsible for the enabling scenic road law in Hartford. And because of one of the provisions in our scenic road ordinance, which certain people didn't like, he tried to get that committee to eviscerate the state's scenic road provisions. He was scolded by Paul Altermat, he was scolded by some other people. It didn't happen. So our scenic road ordinance is as it was. I learned recently that in addition to the bridge being an issue, that there was going to be a look at the scenic road ordinance. I plead with you, please, not to try to fiddle around with something that has lasted all these years. I mean, the town, recognize the town has not been generous to the scenic road ordinance because scenic roads have been widened without approval. Barker Road is one of them, Chernisky Road is another, but there have been others too. Now, we really do regard that part of town as our home, it's the place we love to live. And we'd rather not have the 16, 18-wheelers going through. We don't need a bigger bridge. We hope that you'll really give consideration not to just the notion of trying to get the big east-west connector. As observed before, Kent doesn't want that. Washington doesn't want that. We have a responsibility to our neighboring towns. We have a responsibility to the people in that part of town. And I really urge you to listen to what we say, to try to work with us. When I went to the meeting, the information meeting recently that Mayor Bass was good enough to establish, to plan, to organize, it was clear, there was no question that the Public Works Director had made his mind up that one-lane bridge was just not something that was possible. I think it's probably possible if we keep open minds. I think it can be a safe one-lane bridge. In fact, that bridge does slow traffic down in a way that is necessary. The speed limit's up there at 30, 35, and cars are going through there at 55, 60. I mean, it's really not a good situation. So please be very careful with how you handle this and what we do in the future, and please let us know ahead of time. I mean, the agenda said something about action. I certainly hope you're not going to plan to take any action tonight, because we don't know what that action would be. So please give us as much notice as you can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Guy.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that's the end of the list.
Thank you, Walter. Next, moving on to Mayor's remarks. So first, I hope that those that celebrated Hanukkah had a blessed Festival of Lights. I'd also like to congratulate our 70-year New Milford resident, Olive Friedman, who turned 100 years old today. I was able to wish her a happy birthday today. Also, I was at the last Board of Education meeting, and it was wonderful to see that we have a 2019 Merit Scholar, and his name is Sean Murphy. And Mr. Murphy did quite an outstanding thing. 1.5 million students participate in this, and only 35,000 reach this status. So congratulations to Mr. Murphy. I'd also like to congratulate, staying kind of on the high school, I'd also like to congratulate the New Milford High School Dramatics Club for their game of tiaras that I happened to see on Friday night. It was outstanding. We have a lot of talent in that school, and I think that's wonderful. I'd also like to congratulate a couple new businesses that opened in town. The first one being the new Deli Country Store, which is up in Gaylordsville. It used to be the Gaylordsville Country Store. Bob and his son Hakeem have opened it up. They've done some remodeling. They make a very good breakfast sandwich, I can tell you that. And we wish them well. Also, Mr. Brian Shanks opened up A&B Sports Cards, Memorabilia, and Collectibles on Danbury Road, which is next to the ski house. I'd like to thank Mr. Shanks and his family for their investment in New Milford as well. I'd also like to congratulate our Board of Ed member, Angie Chastain. She ended up being a winner from the United Way Hometown Hero. And what she did is she was an integral part in our breakfast and lunch program in the summer, our summer program, to help those children that could not afford it. So we thank Angie and all the volunteers for doing that wonderful endeavor, and she's actually continuing to do that, so we thank her and all the volunteers. I'd also like to thank Ryan Finella, as he was also named the Emerging Hero. He's done a lot of wonderful things in the high school as well as through his church, and we thank him for that. I'd also like to congratulate Liam Lacey, who received the DAR 2018 Good Citizen Award, and what he does is his commitment to the high school and to our community. So it's wonderful to see all of these young people, and also Olive, that have done wonderful things for our town. So congratulations to them. For those of you that drive down Railroad Street and Bennett Street, you'll see a Christmas tree there. It's lit up, and that was sponsored by the Holland Family Foundation. So we'd love to thank them for that as we continue on our improvements in the downtown and in the area. I'd also like to thank for the beautiful Christmas tree that's by Veterans Bridge. We had an anonymous donor donate that and put it up, so I'd like to thank that person for that. I'd also like to thank Mr. Mullen for the lights. And I'd also like to thank Pat and Mike Erickson, Andy Kozo, Laura Flake for putting up the tree, and Joe Caranto for putting a star on the tree. So it's a beautiful tree for all of us to enjoy. So thank you. On our roads, we are continuing to look to complete the punch lists on items on Sager Road, Littlefield, and Carmen Hill 1. We're continuing to work that, weather permitting. We're also looking to put up guardrails on Long Mountain Road, weather permitting. Mill Street Bridge, for those that don't know, is open to the public. We still have a couple of punch list items to do there, but you can travel on that road. Right now, we're working on next year's road program with the Department of Public Works, with our roads committee, with an emphasis on engineering the roads this winter for spring groundbreaking. Our pothole machine is due to come in January and February. This pothole machine will create efficiencies and make for better repair of the pothole. So we're excited about that. We've also received our new 11.5-foot deck mower and our 61-inch turn mower for our Park and Recs employee workforce that sorely needed these, as this equipment was over 20 years old and happened to break down quite a bit. Also, Dan Calhoun had told us the Ventrac blower that they've been using has been outstanding. It's helped them with time efficiency and everything else. We also use that to blow the river walk that was needed to be cleaned 2 to 3 times a year. Also, another thing too, as it was brought forward today, is I had a meeting in November concerning bridges, a meeting with the public. One we're going to be talking about tonight, and that's Chernisky Road. That road is a scenic road, and we'll be talking about what needs to get done on that scenic road. And one of the things is by the charter is to set up a committee, and that's the committee that I'm going to be talking about tonight. It's composed of a council member, myself, a couple members from the public, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. I think the people should be heard, as it's their neighborhood, and we're going to do what we can to do the best product we can for our residents, and especially for our neighbors that live on that road. And we'll talk more about that as we move forward. I'd also like to let the town know that we're implementing our unified town fleet management system. And what that is the management system will be able to track all of our vehicles. Currently we had 3 different fleet managements all in one. We've met with our department heads, and we're actually going to one that will encompass all of the vehicles. It can tell us mileage, can tell us when we need to do maintenance on the vehicles. It has geofencing. One of the things that Verizon said, it would give us a 20% lift in our costs. Also, it's going to save us approximately $900 a month with all of it together. Next, I'd like to thank the Town Council, the Board of Education, and the Board of Finance for the unanimous approval of the Memorandum of Understanding to migrate the health insurance to the Connecticut State Plan. This will provide approximately $2.5 million in cost avoidance in next year's budget. And what that means is, if we did not go, we'd have to budget an additional $2.5 million into our health insurance for our budget to stay on the same plan we have now. The town side will save approximately over $700,000 from this year's budget. So it's a significant savings. So I applaud all of the boards to do a unanimous decision. So I thank them for that. We continue to work with our Board of Education partners in planning for capital repairs throughout the town and its infrastructure. We will be looking at permanent repair of the high school roof and Sarah Noble roof, as well as Town Hall. These are repairs that need to get done. We're also going to be looking at other things that we can jointly purchase as well. Some of the things that we're doing now is we're doing our oil tanks that we're doing this year. And I'll expound on that more in our January meeting. We are beginning the process of our library expansion project that was approved by the voters at referendum. So I thank the voters. We'll be meeting with the library committee, the finance director, on the next steps of this project, and then I'll update the council at the January meeting. We are beginning our 2019-2020 budget process. With this in mind, I will be asking for a joint meeting of the Town Council, Board of Finance, and Board of Education to look at revenues, debt, and capital so that we can properly plan for the 2019-20 budget and beyond. The New Milford CERT team, which is our town's primary volunteer response for staffing and operating emergency shelters when needed, had an overnight shelter drill on November 30th through Saturday, December 1st. I thank them for doing that endeavor as we begin our plans for our emergency operations. We've been planning this year and also last year anything for emergency instances within the schools, to snow days, to extreme cold, to extreme heat, and I'm proud of working with our emergency operations center, which includes fire, police, ambulance, hospital, and our emergency services team, so I thank them for that. I'd also like to thank our town department heads and our employees as we continue to look for ways to drive efficiencies and provide services to our wonderful town. This is something that's ongoing, and we're going to continue to do every day and every month for you, the taxpayer. Lastly, at our last town council meeting, there was a motion to approve the request for the community center's request for $18,000 for a survey. After much debate, including where to fund the survey from, there was a vote, a 4-4 tie. I then tabled the motions for concerning of the following. We were informed at our town council meeting that we needed to fund an additional $250,000 for our other legal line. With this expenditure, that depleted our fund, our unassigned fund for this year. I thought, and still do, we needed time to see where we could get the funding for this purpose, as these budgetary items are not in the budget. I thought that we could postpone the item as a postpone definitely, which is per Robert's rules. I did make a mistake, though, and I fully want to apologize to the town council and you, the public. Postponing indefinitely needs to come from the floor and be voted by the floor. For that, I made a mistake. So I apologize to you guys. I did put this motion back on the floor tonight so that we could talk about it and vote at it. Lastly, I would like and want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a blessed Happy New Year. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Agenda item 4, the consent agenda. Move the council to approve all the items for A and B.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Item 5, move for the appointment and reappointment of boards and commissions and committees as listed under Library Board of Trustees, Municipal Road Committee, and Ethics Committee.
You have a
One
sec-
question.
Yes, sir.
There's one date that's different than the others.
Right, on the
Jolene
roads.
Lukovitz.
On the roads? Yeah, I
Yeah.
noticed that. Is that a typographical?
No, it's not. The 4 members have terms that go to 2022, 3 have them that go to 2020.
Okay, so that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 6, move for the town council to enter into executive session for item A, which is the New Milford Police Department Officers Collective Bargaining Agreement, including recent negotiation relating to this agreement, and we invite in the Personnel Director Bolero, Attorney Ken Taylor, and Attorney Matt Grimes.
Have a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Sorry, can we have Chief Cerullo, please, too?
Yep, Chief Ceruto's here as well.
Some of
And we have item, yeah, I know. And we have item B in executive session, which is offers for purchase of municipal property. For that, we will need Mike Zarba, Department of Public Works, and Matt Grimes.
That'll be after.
Mike Sarva's not here, so he's against it.
Okay, no, he's right
It's
there.
right there.
I was hiding in the back.
You can
So everybody-
just hand those out.
Uh,
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Oh my God. It started to snow a little bit, it was pretty cool.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. This is our map right there. Yes. We all set? Okay. So, I'd like to move that we return to regular session and note that there were no votes, no motions were made and no votes were taken during executive session. Do I have a second to return?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 7, public hearings. Move to approve the amendment to Chapter 2A Alarms to the Code of Ordinances and resume the public hearing at 6:30 PM on January 14th, 2019.
Have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 7B, move to approve the amendment to Chapter 5B, Article 3, inspection fees to the Code of Ordinance and resume the public hearing at 6:30 PM on January 14, 2019.
Any discussion?
Could I go on the record about this one, Mr. Mayor? Because the council had asked us to look into it last time. We spoke about something. We thought that there were marshal costs, state marshal costs associated with this. There are not actually. They do not require the service of a state marshal. So the $200 plus costs would be for the mileage, would be for when there's a police officer that it's a hostile situation. Most of them are not hostile situations. So this is, instead of a flat $250, this would be $200 plus whatever the costs are for our fire marshals to go up there.
So we have a second? We have a motion? We
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 7C, move to approve the repeal of Ordinance Chapter 16, Article 5, Zoning and Commission from the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
This was from our public hearing this afternoon. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 7D, move to approve the repeal of Ordinance Chapter 2, Article 6, alternates to the Board of Finance from the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 7E, move to approve the repeal of Ordinance Chapter 2, Article 17, Statute 2-161, membership from the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 8, discussion and possible action on the following job descriptions. We'll start with A. Is Greg Valero here to talk about this? Yes, could I just, excuse me a minute, Greg. Mayor, we'd like to, I guess, suspend the rules to go to executive session on this. We have a couple of questions.
Make a motion to add another executive session to the agenda for...
I don't have to suspend anything. I move to add another executive session to our agenda. Item 8, hold on, what's the last one? Item
It'd be
14.
8.
Item 8.
Oh, wait, you
8
wanna
is
put it
what we're
there?
on. Well, and then I'm going to ask to move it up, but I can't insert it here, can I?
You can amend the item on the agenda.
All right, that's what I'll do. I'd like to amend the item 8 on the agenda and go to executive session.
Second.
Who's being invited into executive session?
Personnel Director, HR Director, Mr. Valero.
adding it at the moment, then you have to actually do it.
I can't hear you.
You're just adding it at the moment.
That's what I was doing, yes. I didn't add.
going in yet, right? So you're adding
Right.
go into it.
Right now, we're just talking to vote on amending to go to executive session. Okay?
Is
Do we
that,
have a second?
is that all good now?
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Do we vote on it?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And we'd like to
Walter,
have,
Walter and Dr. Mullins.
Now you have to vote to go into it.
yes, right.
Do we have to
So
go into it now, or can we do it
I
at the
move
end?
to enter into executive session.
Tom had a question.
Yes.
Do we do it now, or can we do it at the end and go through the rest of the agenda? What is the pleasure of the council?
Sure. I was going to make it item 14, but everybody wanted to make it item 8, so.
Sounds good to me.
I'll put it back to item 14 then. How's that?
I wasn't following that.
Yeah, it's okay. I got up early this morning. Okay, so I'll withdraw my motion to go to executive session, but I will ask that we make the, can I do that, Matt? Can I just change the number? Or do I have to withdraw what I said?
Yeah, technically, you should withdraw, just have to do the motion again, but you just passed it as item 8.
What?
You just passed it to us, item 8.
Yes, but I'd like to make it item 14, so we can move ahead.
So make the
Without
motion.
objection.
Yeah, I'm going to, I can withdraw my motion completely?
Correct. Without objection.
Without objection, that will board, it can be.
Yep,
Okay, so it's going to be item 14,
perfect.
all right?
Okay,
Good.
let's go to 9.
Item 9, Fire Department. Motion to approve the fire chief's request to restore funding of $25,000 to the fire apparatus expenditure account.
Second.
Any discussion? Chief?
Anyone from the department?
Yeah, the chief's right there.
Good evening, I'm James Furlow. I'm the fire chief of Waterwitch Hose Company Number 2. With me tonight, Alan Harris, with Chief of Northville Fire Department, and Dave Williamson, who is Chief of Gaylorsville Fire Department. The 3 volunteer fire departments are requesting the restoration of $25,000 to the capital expenditure account. The 10% reduction to this account in the 2018-2019 budget has had an impact to the replacement need of the fire apparatus. The officers and members of the town fire services would like to take the opportunity to discuss this with the town council. A bit of history on this. The discussion about the annual budget and the purchase of replacement of fire apparatus actually originated back in 1979, following the 1979 Middle Street fire. Prior to and subsequent to that fire, several requests from the fire departments were made to purchase a new quick response vehicle, which were not acted upon by this Board of Selectmen at that time for several years. The 3 fire companies got together and devised a program to develop a fire apparatus capital expenditure account. This account is to purchase fire apparatus and replace aging equipment by creating a yearly stipend from the town. This in turn avoided continuous requests for funding of 1 or more fire apparatus each year at a greater cost than the stipend that was to be set aside. The town's annual contribution to this fund was established in November of 1983, was $150,000. This annual contribution did not change for 31 years. Although the cost of fire apparatus more than doubled, the collective apparatus replacement plan has worked by supplemental funding from donations and grants, refurbishing existing apparatus, and replacing only the equipment that needed to be replaced. Even with those strategies in place, the fire departments found the need to address the future of the existing apparatus we have. In 2014, a funding increase request for $250,000 was made and approved by the town council. This amount has been adopted in the subsequent annual budget since year 2014. The fire departments felt it necessary to review an entire rotation of the fire service apparatus that we have to give a better representation of what this request is. The fire department utilizes this plan as its 5-year capital plan, and they make revisions as needed. The 3 departments meet every year to address apparatus needs. It is important to note that the fire engines are in service for approximately 25 years, while tankers and rescue trucks are in service for about 30 years, and brush trucks a few years longer than that. It has been found that by buying quality apparatus and requiring proper maintenance allows for our current fleet to meet these anticipated time frames. The tower ladder has never been incorporated as part of this group. So let's introduce you to our capital account and our fleet. Give me one moment.
Catch up.
Hey.
It should come back on. There we go. Okay. As I said, we are requesting for reinstatement of capital funds. All of you have received this PowerPoint program through the emails. our capital budget worksheets back and forth together. These are the comparison. The one on the left is the capital budget that we originally handed in 2014. We decided to go back a few years so you look at how we deal with this. And with this, and then the one on the right is the capital budget worksheet that's minus the 25K. A couple things to point out with this, find my pointer, is if you look at the lines in the 2021 budget, without the 25K that we currently have, 2 years from now, we go into deficit spending, and that is a concern that we have as the three chiefs here. If you take a look at the other side, we don't go into deficit spending until a little over 10 years out, or 11 years out. Too far? Right here. So the red are indicating where we go into the negative. So that is a concern that we have, is that we will have to completely revamp our budgeting system because we will potentially be in the red significantly sooner, even though it's only $25,000. We keep a very tight budget. The top 4 lines that are green are all apparatus that have currently been replaced and are in service. The one that's in gold is one that had just the contract has been signed on. We will have that truck probably in November of next year, as well as the ladder truck. So we're keeping rolling on these. But we do, with the capital budget worksheet, we take this very seriously as our 5-year capital plan, and we work off the monies that we have and the anticipation of what we can do with these monies. The apparatus themselves. Engine 26, which is a pumper light rescue. This is a Class A pumper. It has a 1500 GPM pumper in the middle. This is also a light rescue, which means it also has what we call E-tools or E-extrication hearse tools on it. This was placed in service in 2014. This is a 6-man cab, so it has a driver, an officer, and then 4 firefighters in back that are able to get dressed and be ready to roll and step off the truck with air pack and with all their gear ready to go. So this is particularly a street truck. The next truck we have is Rescue 45. I'll turn this over to Chief Williamson.
All right, this is our newest one up in Gillardsville. It's a mini rescue. All right, we have the Houstonic River, which comes through. We have a lot of kayakers, stuff like that. All our water rescue stuff on there. We had a trailer before that had hazardous material response and kayaks in it. We've incorporated that all into one vehicle, so we only need to get one vehicle out without a trailer trying to get all that in there. It's got all high-angle rope rescue equipment in it. Any land searches, anything like that, this is what we roll. It has the capability to tow on our quad and everything else. So, just one of our fleet there. Anybody has any questions on it?
Okay, this is Northville's Engine 104. This is our newest pumper, which came in last December. This is our first 6-man cab, which enables us to put more people on the scene with less traffic congestion. It's got a 2,000-gallon pump. It's got 1,000 gallons of water. It's our main attack pumper. It also has a rescue tool system in the back to supplement our heavy rescue.
Next up, this is the one that's being replaced right now. It is currently under contract. This is Engine 27. It is a straightforward pumper. This is a smaller machine. This is a 2-person cab. This particular engine is a first-due engine and a supply engine. This is so we can get into places like lake clubs, tight driveways, etc. It is an attack engine. But it only has 1,000 gallons of water on it. So when we go there, we need to supplement this with tankers or our other equipment if we do have a structure fire. When we end up going to a structure fire, we don't bring one tanker. We're bringing the 5 that the town of Milford has. They are portable hydrants to us, and we need that water. In addition to that, we sometimes call in a tanker task force and or mutual aid to supplement that. So we do go outside of our town to get to mutual aid.
This is our 1990 tanker, 3,000 gallons of water, 1,000 gallon minute pump. If one of our pumpers go out of service, we designed this so that it could be an attack pumper secondary. So it kind of does dual purpose. Gaylordsville has 2 fire hydrants in it. They're located in the extreme southern part of our district of Twin Oaks. That's it. Everything else is water on wheels or pulling out of a stream. So last structure fire we had all 5 tankers from New Milford in town, Sherman, Kent, and a crew from New York State coming over. So it's just one of the things. That right now, that's going to be replaced in 1920 at 30 years old. It's close to 60,000 pounds. And you look at that rolling down the road. 30-year-old equipment. Just keep that stuff in mind.
How many miles does that have on it?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. Somewhere probably around 20,000, somewhere in there. Mileage isn't a huge thing with us. Every time it goes in the pump, it's adding mileage on. Whether it's driving down the road or not, it's still, the hours of pump use count towards mileage on these trucks. So it's
So how many hours of pump usage is it?
without going back to my records, I couldn't tell you. Tankers tend not to get a lot of pump hours because they're shuttling back and forth. We have supply trucks that fill them.
Rescue 22, this is a heavy rescue out of based out of Waterwitch. This has, again, our complement of rope rescue, all sorts of different tools on it. This is a rolling toolbox for us. It also has jaws of life. It also has all of our airbag systems on this. So if we end up with a car underneath the trailer truck, we have the capability of dealing with that scenario that we do have. This will be at age of retirement 27 years old. So that's where it stands in the list. Brush truck 23. This is a 1984 brush truck and utility vehicle. This has got a very small pump on the back, but this is to get us out into the middle of the woods. This is a 4-wheel drive vehicle when we spin the hubs, but this still is a 1984 3-speed vehicle. But this gets us anywhere we want to go. You put this in low gear, as long as you don't have trees in your way, you can get to just about anywhere. It's a very good truck. We like keeping this one, but as you can imagine, right about now, transmissions from 1984, most of the carburetors from 1984, it's very hard to get parts to repair these. This will be 38 years old at its anticipated retirement date.
How many total brush trucks, sorry to interrupt, how many total brush utility trucks do we have across the town?
Brush trucks, we have 4 brush trucks.
And somebody said earlier 5 total tankers?
Yes, correct.
How many pumpers?
2, 3, 4. I have 4. 2.
8?
4. Yeah, total 8.
And rescue?
Mine's a combination. It's a pumper rescue.
Okay, so you already counted that?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a pure heavy rescue and he has a heavy rescue.
Okay, and then there was a little rescue.
That's
the kayaks.
Yeah, that's a utility. It's not,
Okay, so
it's
you
not
got
a true. It's not a true rescue.
So 2 rescue, 5 tankers, 8 pumpers, 4 brush truck utilities?
Yeah, and I have a supply pumper, so I don't have a hydrant.
Thank you.
This is engine 106. It's a 1990 conventional cab fire truck. It's got a 1,500 gallon minute pump. It's got 1,250 gallons of water and about 1,400 feet of 5-inch supply line. Actually, this is operating right now this was operating at the condominium fire past the high school about 3 years ago, feeding the aerial. We refurbished this truck, I believe, in 2014. We spent, I want to say about $90,000 on it at that time, completely updating. We had to redo all the plumbing, lighting, and brake system at that point in time to get us another 10, 12 years out of it.
This is where we discuss in our annual meetings whether we refurbish trucks or how we utilize trucks. This is a way that we keep our costs down for the betterment of the town. Engine 19, 1999, this again is a small pumper. Yep.
So again, just to kind of ground me, average cost of a tanker.
We're talking about 400 now.
You can be climbing anywhere between $400,000 to $500,000 depending on drive line and configuration, whether it's a single axle or a tandem axle.
What do we typically buy?
I'm sorry?
What do we typically buy, single or tandem?
We're buying tandems. We're buying, again, typically a single axle tanker is going to be 2,000 gallons or less,
Okay.
1,800 to 2,000. We're running anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 gallons.
Gotcha. And then what's an average cost of a new pumper?
Well, North Hills pumper was about 548,000.
Thank you. And rescue?
Rescues can be anywhere from 350 to 450 ballpark.
And brush truck, utility trucks?
What are we running, 140?
I would say 140 to 160, depending on, again, configuration, chassis, and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I'd like you to keep in mind with this, when you're talking these numbers, that does not include everything that goes in it.
We talked about that during the budget, then you still have to outfit them,
Yes,
correct?
that doesn't count the hose, the
Yep.
nozzles, the
Yep.
air packs, everything that goes in there.
Understood, yep,
Bare bones.
yep.
All right, again, this is engine 19. This is our second. This is Waterwich's second smaller pumper for getting into the Lake Club areas. Very good backup. It's an attack engine. It's also a very good backup supply truck for when we have larger fires. This can actually supply. It's got a big enough pump to supply either the tanker shovels and or the ladder truck. We're looking at a replacement at 26 years old.
This is Northfield Tanker 103. It's a 2,000 conventional tanker. It's got 2,500 gallons of water. It's got a 500 gallon per minute pump on it. It's primarily a shuttle truck. Again, our operations are such that we don't have as many hydrants as Gaylersville. We've got maybe one, maybe two. But we focus on either the Aspetuck, or we have Lake LFOs for water supply, and again, a small pond here and there. We actually, Northfield rolls out of the firehouse, initial response, 2 tankers, 2 engines. We have 7,350 gallons of water. If we can't do it with that, then we're calling the cavalry.
Katie?
Jim, I have just a quick question. You mentioned before that a piece of equipment you used in the lake communities, and you just mentioned it again on another one. And is that's because of the tight constraint in the streets, or?
Sometimes the streets, sometimes the driveways, yes. We will bring a 6-man cab down in there, but we may not be able to get in as a first due. So we take it upon our drivers to know where they're going and to take the right truck into the right community. These smaller single wheelbase trucks can get into people's driveways significantly better. And again, you can use them as they are attack engines, they're ready to go. They just don't have everything else that's on it. You bring that on the next truck that sits in the roadway.
And what were the 2 that you said were good for the lake community use?
There are, well, R19 and R27, because they're a shorter wheelbase truck.
Okay. So those 2 are able to, are there any others coming up that you, other than those 2? Those 2 do the job in the lake area?
That's correct, yes. Yeah, we keep those 2 shorter. And then we have the larger ones that carry more equipment and, have 6-man cabs, so we can get more people together with those.
Okay.
But sometimes those don't have the wheelbase to be able to get onto some of these driveways.
Yeah, I know. Treacherous. Thanks.
Tom?
I see you have a pretty substantial list after this that's probably going to come up. I'd like to just ask the question, why now? I understand that you're looking for $25,000. Why, we're at the middle of the budget year, Why not just bring this forward to, in the next budget season, to reinstate these funds as opposed to right now? I mean, is there something critical going on that we don't know that we need this 25 grand for this month? Or is this something that we could incorporate into the budget cycle?
Want me to handle this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Nice and simple. Next month, we meet as a group, and we have to reschedule our 5-year plan. We try not to look at potentials to have increases or decreases in our budgeting. We'd like to come to this commission, come up with $250,000, which is what we, came forward with a bunch of years ago to meet this requirement. If we don't have that, then we're looking at potentially a budget deficit within our 5-year capital plan. That budget deficit is in, I believe it's 1920 or something like that, which is not this budget year we're looking at, it's the following budget year. That's why we're coming up before this, because we don't want to see an increase of $50,000 next year, and then it also means that we have to go back to the drawing board or redo things. Because we're going to go off of what we have as a known versus what we anticipate.
Paul?
So in that year, the 2021, we're showing a rescue truck that's 27 years old. Just to better understand, but the letter is saying that the rescue trucks are typically 30 years, the tankers and rescues. And then if you look at the list, the 103 2001 tanker is only 26 years old, one's getting replaced. The next rescue pumper is 28 years old, the next rescue is 28 years old. If you go down, there's several more. So I guess my question is if the typical replacement schedule for that 1994 rescue truck is 30 years per your letter, and that one's 27, why are all these replacements about 10% less than what the letter says they should be replaced at?
All right, we have them in the schedule. We try and look at, we can't sit there and go, it has to be 30 years, because we don't know if they're actually going to last that long. But, we try and make them last longer or as long as we can. We also have to look at what the total fleet is when we look at these.
One of the other things you have to consider when you order one of these, you don't go to a lot and pick it up. It's a 1 to 2 build time.
No, I know.
So if you're looking for that, it's 26 years old or 28 years old there, and you get it 1.5 years later, well, now you're at 29.5 years of actual use time.
No, I know.
Hey, Jim.
Mike?
Yeah, it looks like in that year 2021 that you guys are only going to be $5,000 light. Why not just ask for the 5 rather than the 25?
I think that the 3 chiefs sat down and were trying to get back onto the schedule we originally brought forward.
Oh. Do you guys have your own money? Each house has its own funds, separate from the 250 that that the town gives and supports?
This is the capital budget. This is strictly for apparatus replacement. As far as the additional funding that we do for fundraising and what we do in the other, there's another line item we come in for from each fire department, which is the replacement of all the equipment we put onto these. That's under a totally separate line item. This is strictly for the trucks themselves.
And where does the fire tax go to?
Fire tax goes to the Milford Fire Association. It has a limited taxing area, and that goes towards repair of the vehicles, as well as paying for the street lights, paying for the hydrants within the district, and various other things associated with the taxing district. We have to maintain, by being part of the taxing district, we have to keep a Class A pumper in the house and available to the district at all times.
Thank you.
Paul?
So our trucks that are sold from our departments, I believe you said the ladder truck probably couldn't be sold because of the condition it was in. But I know that our other ones that we've sold have gone into service in other departments, maybe not in the state. There were 2 actually that were posted online where a guy came to the New Milford page and said it was great to see New Milford's trucks getting reused. I forget what state he was in. So the question is if we're getting rid of the trucks and it's good enough for the other towns that are buying them and using them and refurbishing them, I guess I'm just kind of trying to better understand why we're getting rid of them if our junk is another town's treasure, so to speak. How is that? It was a welding guy who posted it online.
A welding guy.
Yeah, I forget what state it was, and two of the New Milford trucks were in operation in fire departments in another state.
I know that when Northville got our new engine, we sold our old engine, because actually, we have more into our, we spent more than we got from the town in terms of equipment on it, hose and stuff, and that was worked into the price when we disposed of our 96 engine. A lot of some of the older stuff, like when Northville sold their old tanker, which was rusting through, I mean, it went to down south where people, they don't have any money, where they'll spend $12,000 on an item, on a truck, because there's, certain parts of the country, they don't have any money for apparatus replacement, so it enables us to get rid of, to move stuff along.
There's also actually companies that buy our fire apparatus and send it to South America or Canada because they're not an NFPA, National Fire Protection. They don't have to meet standards. So if you don't have to meet that standard, you can send that to a place where there is no standard.
So you're saying then, just to be clear, when these 26-year-old trucks are going, we're salvaging them, you're saying they're not, we legally at that point can no longer keep them on the road?
No, we didn't say that.
No. Well, I'm not understanding that.
No.
There's a standard.
Okay, the NFPA standard.
All right, we can keep them on the road, but it's a liability. When you have a 30-year-old fire truck going down the road and something breaks, and you take out a family in a minivan or something like that, they're going to go to that standard.
I'm not following. So you're saying if we're not properly maintaining our vehicle, I'm not following. You're saying our 30-year-old vehicles are a larger liability than a 15-year-old vehicle on the roadway?
Just due to age, yeah.
Even if they're properly maintained?
Anything can happen. The older something gets, the more of a chance something's going to break.
These trucks don't get road miles. They don't have miles on them like we're used to on a commercial vehicle or our cars. They sit there and they sit and they age. And then they're used at a high capacity sometimes, and then they sit again. So there's a lot of stresses that occur within a fire truck in terms of its pump and its plumbing and transmissions. Again, the newer trucks, that are safer trucks, they now have airbags in them. They now have better braking systems in them. The newer trucks stop in a way less distance than the older trucks do, significantly. They have traction control, electronic stability, just like your cars do. So the trucks change, they get safer, hopefully they're more reliable. And again, you need to be certain, that pump's not going to fail when you're in the midst of a house fire. We do annual pump testing, we do annual hose testing, we do annual DOTs. I mean, these trucks get their oil changed once a year, whether they need it or not, whether they do 100 miles or 2,000 miles. Again, we're just running around town, so there's a lot of stress in short-term use.
So it's fair to say then that with their limited usage, they get a higher level of maintenance than a typical vehicle?
We maintain, I'll use this as an example. I had back in 1999, 2000, I don't know if anybody was on the council then, Chief Mayor probably remembers, we had an apparatus accident in front of Advanced Auto Parts. A minivan pulled out, thought that, sorry.
Nice ring though.
It is a good ring.
Very nice ring.
Thank you for that.
Sorry about that. New phone, I haven't figured how to silence it. So anyway, the truck was in good condition. did an evasive maneuver and ended up upside down in the parking lot of the karate school on the coldest day of the year. Coldest, we had a period of frigid weather, and it turned into a block of ice when it sat outside at Park Cadillac. But anyway, state police truck squad came and went through this truck from top to bottom. And knock wood, everything on it was good. However, again, we have good maintenance program, but still the reliability of the units as they get older can diminish. You know, again, we try to buy good stuff that we're going to get a lot of life out of. Again, NFPA, most communities, you know, 20 years on a pumper, and a lot of them are trying to apply that 20-year formula to everything, which we're not doing that. We're trying to get more life out of our tankers because we buy good tankers, and therefore we can get 25 to 30 years out of them. Now, I know that Gaylordsville's tanker, that's what year is that now?
90.
That's a 90. So that's coming due.
You come up and you look at our stuff, and it's all nice and shiny and looks brand new. That's because we take care of it. After every call, it gets washed. Every time it goes down the road, it gets rinsed from underneath, everything. 3 o'clock in the morning, slushy snowstorm, you're out fighting a fire. You come back, you put everything back together, you're washing it. You got to take care of your stuff. Because we know we're trying to stretch it. You know, we're trying to do everything we can to take care of our stuff so that it looks brand new. That's, you know.
Katie?
John Paul? I just have a question. Yes, I know you take good care of it. It always looks great. And I just have a question. How do you, well, first of all, what's the average amount, would you say, that you spend on repairs every year?
Does that include tires or not?
Anything that if you said the fire tax goes to the fire association and you use that for repairs plus maybe other money. I'm just curious what it, approximate, anything that you'd consider a repair. Not the replacement of your packs, that's
totally
right.
separate, yeah.
But something that's attached to the trucks.
Probably with DOT repairs, things like that. I think Waterwich is probably into maybe $80,000 to $100,000 a year.
Okay.
But also understand that will include the ladder truck at this juncture. There's a lot of repairs on that ladder truck.
Okay.
But
I get it. Well, you're the
there
largest
is some
one,
maintenance
so-
associated with the older trucks that is a part of it. And
Well, what's your
sure-
annual budget? What do you budget when you're looking at your plan, your 5-year plan? What do you put in for repairs? Realizing it's an estimate.
Well, we put in Northville's budget, because we're all a little different. They've got the fire association. I want to say last year we had 18,000 and change as a line item in our budget to do tires and maintenance.
Okay. And of course, you have 3 more vehicles in Waterwich. I have counted 6 for Galersville, 6 for Northville, and 9 for Waterwich, for a total of 21. That's what's listed here.
That's on that list. We have other vehicles that are not on this list because we have other donations and things like that for apparatus. And we also have 2 state vehicles with Waterwich.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to use this because that makes it fair across the board. So, all right, so it stands to reason that you would be more than Northville or for Galersville. So, okay, that gives me something to go on. But I have a bigger question. How do you figure, or does a town figure, how much equipment you need? Is it, I mean, I know we're the largest in area of any town. Is it by the population? Is it a combo of the square miles and population?
There's multiple factors. Response time is one of them.
So for us, that would be a big thing.
That is a big thing.
Yeah.
You know, we're for us to get mutual aid, it's 15 minutes.
Yeah. So you have, yeah, and if you need Sherman, if you're on that side of town, but
Sherman.
if you're on the other end of town.
Yeah, can't, whatever, depending
So
on
it's
how it is.
is there any set formula for it, or does each town figure it? I mean, because you all have different numbers of
I
volunteers
think
and.
we work off of what you need to actually fight a standard fire that you might have. If you're going to a structure fire, you know, I'll separate commercial from residential. You're going to a residential fire, you're talking 2 attack trucks at the scene immediately, You're talking a supply truck coming out the end of that. You're talking all 5 tankers if you're in a tanker district. Either that or you're talking 1 or 2 more supply trucks if you're in a hydrant district.
Right.
If you need the ladder truck, then you need the ladder truck at its sole source requirement. So no matter how you look at it, we're going to a large structure fire, we're not doing it alone. There's no way we could, even with all the equipment that we have sitting there, we're not doing it alone.
You
We have to
call in reinforcements. Okay,
reinforcements.
so it is a combo then of population and square miles,
Square miles.
and where you're located.
And exactly, and depending on the situation.
And it's a tactical consideration. Okay,
Yeah.
in our district, I need, again, pumper in the driveway, pumper at the bottom of the driveway, and I've gotta have water.
I want you to have water.
And we've gotta have
They're
water.
my house.
And again, for tanker to come up, you know, it can be a 15-minute delay. With modern construction and the way houses are, with the fuel loads in a structure today, with all the Bob's gasoline furniture, all that stuff is combustible. You don't have 30 minutes of time to work.
Right.
You've got maybe 10. And if that 10 minutes or that 15 minutes has elapsed because of your response time, you could be going
There
into
goes my house.
conceivably a very dangerous situation.
One of the things that he didn't account for in the initial response, all right, those 2 rigs, those are gonna be what you're actually using and pumping. You're gonna be having more manpower come in, you need a rapid intervention team. Northville specializes in that. Their fire truck's gonna roll up, they're gonna have all their equipment, air packs and stuff like that on it. Average for a 2-story wood frame house, 2.5-story wood frame house, 28 to 38 guys need to be outfitted in full turnout gear with air packs. So my first out pumper has 6 packs on it, my second out pumper has 4 packs on it.
So you still got more coming.
So you still have to have more, you know, they have 6-man cabs, I don't have the luxury.
And I just have one last question, I don't want to belabor this forever, but we have Waterwich, Northville, Galersville. Has there ever been a consideration of another, where you feel there's a deficiency in reaching in time? Is there an area of our town that you can't get to?
I don't.
That was specifically addressed when they put in the Lanesville Fire
I wondered
Station.
about that.
That is why that is down there, is because there was a problem with getting to those areas. But also, in the far-reaching areas, we all have mutual aid agreements.
Right, so if it was me, you'd come from Sherman.
Right,
I'm a lot closer to them than I am to you.
correct. But we have what we also refer to as automatic mutual aid.
Right.
Down at Kenwood Lake Club,
Yeah.
not only when we get called, Brookfield gets called.
Right, okay, I figured that's pretty much what happens in any town.
That's correct.
And
We work
that's
together as
volunteer.
best as we can.
Thank you very much.
Walter?
Is this a real problem for the council or not? I'd like to call for a vote.
Before we call for, can I ask a question? One last question? Because I'm not there yet.
Hey, I'm not the mayor.
I don't want to violate any rules. So where's the money gonna come from? We sat here last month, looking for 18.5. Where's the money gonna come from? What are we not gonna spend on?
Well, I'm kind of agreeing with you because we had a budget voted on by the town, and you know, I'm not going into any specifics about your need or anything. I'm just going through the generalities of how it works. Is the town voted on a budget, and if we had Park and Rec or facilities or Board of Ed or $18,000 for community center, always everyone coming up each month saying we need more than we budgeted, we need more than we budgeted. You know, like I don't know who said at the beginning, this seems like a discussion for budget time, not now. And I know you guys want to plan going forward, but this is almost like a precedent we're setting that if you feel you need more than what was budgeted, come to the town and ask for it and see if you can get it. Because, you know, I know yours is more of a life or death, but every department would love to have another 20 grand into their budget right now, and that's where I have a problem. I don't disagree with any of your needs, but you know, this seems like a conversation we should be having in, I don't know what, March or whatever, during budget time. February, sorry.
Okay.
Just remind me, so yeah.
Any other discussion?
I just want to point out that our motion that was made was for your original request which is $25,000. And we all saw in our packet that we received that
That
in
was
this
Scrivener's
year.
error on the second,
No, I'm talking, no, that I saw, I figured that was, yeah. But we also got your worksheet, and it does show 5,000 for 2021, and I don't know. I just want to be sure everybody remembers that it's, the motion is for 25,000. Go ahead.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Yeah.
Yes.
There is no
Yes.
motion yet.
Katie made a motion, and Walter seconded it.
And can
Oh,
you read the
okay.
motion back, please?
Yeah.
To approve the fire chief's request to restore funding of $25,000 to the fire apparatus expenditure account.
And it was seconded by Walter?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I just have the question. Before, it's like we ask everybody, how can we make a decision on giving 25 or 1,000 or 25? Where's it going to come from? Our finance director's not here. Do we know what account this is going to come from? I'm talking to you guys. You, Mayor.
No.
Can't come from waste management.
Well, it leads
Can't
us,
take it from waste management.
it leads us into the next item, and, you know, so we all can think about this, is that if it's not a matter of what's more important, obviously. I mean, the fire department's important. But where will we come with the money? Where is it going to come from?
So perhaps it should be tabled until our finance director can be present.
I don't think we're allowed to table. Do we have to postpone it? Table
Matt?
stays within the same meeting,
Yes. right.
postpone goes to the next meeting.
Right. Rather than to, you know, deny or whatever.
You'd say, from my lesson learned.
Yeah, right.
You'd
So-
say
It's a good lesson for all of
postpone,
us. That's
So
new
our
meeting
next-
postpone.
later.
next
If you were to
meeting
say
is-
that'd be postpone
Right, the next
definitively
regular meeting, which is
with a
on
date.
January the 14th. So, do I need to,
You'd have to withdraw your
Yeah, that's what
motion,
I'm saying.
and
Okay.
Walter would have to withdraw
I'd
his
like to
second.
withdraw my motion.
I'm not saying one way or the other, but you guys are saying you're meeting sometime before the 14th of January, or is it after that?
we could make it after that.
Okay.
We have to meet usually in January to do a whole bunch of things that we do as the three chiefs. The capital plan is one of them. We meet with all of our officers, schedule a lot of different things. We go over NFPA, we go over DOT, we go over a bunch of different things. But that has to be done before we do our presentation before this group
Understood.
for budget.
It's just that I think you can appreciate, we appreciate where you're at, and I think you can appreciate where we're at, and if it's just postponement to the next meeting, that's why I've withdrawn my motion.
Walter, do you withdraw yours?
I'll
Second?
withdraw my second then, but let me make a comment here. I hope it doesn't come to the day where we have to pay for a fire department. Then we're gonna be screaming, where
Certainly
we
not.
gonna get the money from?
Of course.
What these firemen want, I'm all for it. Personal comment.
So we can find out where to put it. So we're postponing this item.
Definitively.
To the, definitively to our next regular meeting, which is January 14th of 2019.
I'm good with that.
Can I add one thing? If any of you would like to come up and go through my firehouse with me, I have an open door. I will gladly walk anybody through my firehouse, show you what we have, what we do, what our capability of it
Thank
is.
you.
You know,
Yep, thank you.
trying to get you guys to understand what we do in a meeting is kind of tough.
Yep, that's
If,
great.
if I could show you, you're gonna be sit there and go, wow, you do that, wow, you do that, wow, you do that. By all means, please.
Thank you.
Contact me.
I know all of you would.
I'll be happy to run anybody through it.
I'm gonna make one comment. Listen, we know you guys are doing an amazing job with some pretty old equipment. There, in my mind, there's no doubt that the equipment needs to be safe for you guys and for the public. My only question is, and my only reservation is right now, is where is the money coming from in the middle of a budget cycle?
Okay, well, that's.
That's my only fear on this. It's not doubting your expertise, all the great work you do. We are indebted to you guys. I know many people who've survived fires because of your quick response. There's no doubt you guys do an amazing job. It's right now in the middle of budget season while, you know, as you've heard before, last meeting there was a large sum of money having to go out for legal expenses. There's people coming at us for this. So we're trying to get ourselves ready for budget season, just like you guys are. And just having the finance director to tell us where this money can come from, and us to have a discussion on that is just prudence on our part. We do not want you in unsafe equipment at all, and you're doing a great job.
I withdrew my motion, Walter withdrew his second.
Okay.
All right, now I'd like to make a motion to postpone discussion of the fire chief's request to restore funding of $25,000 to the fire apparatus expenditure account definitively to our next regular meeting, which will be held January 14th, 2019.
Second.
Is that okay, Matt?
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed. The taxpayers voted. I think we should honor what they voted.
I'm opposed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Opposed to the
Have
postponement.
a safe holiday.
Next is,
Okay, item number 10, community center.
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
this will probably be the same argument for another 45 minutes. Where's the $18,000 going to come from?
Correct.
Yes.
Are we going to do this again?
Well, we don't have anyone here to talk about the financial end of things, Walter, so what do we
Okay.
do? You want
But
to,
what I'm saying is, are we going to argue for another 45 minutes?
Please, no.
Where's the money going to come from?
unless you know where it should come from.
I'm ready to vote.
You're ready to vote? Okay, well, I'll just read it. Item number 10, move in the community, to accept the community center committee's request for $18,000 to fund a market research study.
I second it because I'm in favor of this.
Any discussion on the motion? Dr. Mull?
I really thought a lot of these things that we finance, in the past, we've always said it will come out of one of several possible accounts with a recommendation from the Director of Finance. We've done that dozens of times over the years, so why are we not doing it tonight?
I've always thought it was absurd. I still think it's absurd. I've commented several times on the fact that that's absurd. We were elected to do a job to determine what account it comes from. You even stated for yourself at one of the meetings, you don't even think a Board of Finance should exist. We should do the job.
I would love to see
So
that
let's
happen.
do the
Yeah.
job.
You want to
What
do that?
account?
You want to go there?
Yeah.
Let's go there. Let's go back and redo what the Charter Commission did. Come on. Let's get rid of the Board of
But that
Finance.
was your, but Doctor, that was your statement, that you wanted us as a council to take the bull by the horns and make decisions.
And it
So
didn't
here we are
happen.
tonight, we keep postponing more decisions, let's
It
take the
didn't
bull
happen.
by the
That's
horns.
not what the
Tell
charter
me what
says.
account you want to take it from.
Well, we have more than enough money in our, what do we call it today, the undesignated fund, what do we got, 17 million now?
Don't look at the attorney, doesn't know.
So there's plenty of money there. Moody's only wants us to carry 10 to 15%, we're well over that. So 25,000 or 18,000, it barely touches that. So yeah, that's where I would take the money from.
I'm still back on and this is a shrinking tax town, a town that's shrinking with a shrinking tax base. So we can't keep thinking in growth right now. We have to be thinking of every penny counts, and we budget a certain amount at budget time, and taxpayers vote on it, and I think it's our job to hold it to that. You know, it's just, we have to start thinking differently. If my household was losing income, I wouldn't be spending extra money, I'd be spending less, and I just don't understand it. And you can say, yeah, we have this in savings, or this in this account, or this is where, yes, but those accounts aren't gonna keep growing, and there's our costs. We got saved this year by the, being allowed to piggy on the state's health care, but if that didn't happen, there was another cost that goes up. Costs are going up, and income's going down, so we have to watch our pennies, and that's how I feel about a lot of this stuff.
Any other discussion? Tom?
I stated this before, and will state it again. I think this should be added to the plan of conservation and development discussions and the surveys, because it's beyond just, does the town need a community center? There's a lot of things the town wants. We went up against that in 2008. Those discussions were very well attended. The survey was a very broad survey that was done, and I think If we weren't in the middle of a plan of conservation and development right now, it may be a different story. But right now, we have that ability to do it within that body, as well as ask other questions of what is needed in town. You know, people don't just want a community center. There's a lot of people who want pools. There's people who want consolidated sport fields. Some people would like the community center in town. Some people would like the community center out of town. But there's a lot of other questions that could be asked of the general public that is not just going to be, well, it's just a survey about a community center. I think you'd have a greater response when handled through the POCD. It's just my opinion. We're going to be doing it now. It's going to be a lengthy discussion. I think it could be incorporated into those discussions and those surveys.
Lisa?
Sorry to bring up what I've said at least half a dozen times again, but there's going to be a new twist, I promise. You can't, I appreciate that the plan of conservation and development has community forums and asks questions and you can get to the heart of the matter. But the more you blur the lines about the different types of questions you want answered, the less clear your answers become. People get weary. So I'm still an advocate for doing a separate market research study. However, watching social media and reflecting on the meeting minutes from our previous town councils and when the committee has presented, I'm going to withdraw my support for having the committee do a market research study, and I'll tell you why. And this is nothing against, I know there have been several members of the committee that worked really, really hard and have done their best to try to move this forward. But the committee, select members of the committee, I apologize, have demonstrated confirmation bias time and time again. And when you do market research, if you have confirmation bias, you're going to get the answer you think you want to get. We've had leadership of that committee stand up here and say they want to see the community center in JPS full stop. That's confirmation bias. So as much as I think there are well-intentioned people, the discord that Pat spoke about in public comment about there being such a polarization of opinions on the committee and them not being able to come to consensus as best they could, I think we need to take that conflict out, give the committee direction to have them write their report where they are right now, and not spin their wheels. I said this last town council, let's not yank them around. Let's have them finish it up where they are and find a different way to get the market research done. I don't know where the money is going to come from, but we don't have it, or we think we don't have it. So let's move on. And there's another reason I'm very concerned about the bias, and it's a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to go there. So if you look at, there's an attorney, Austin Wolf, who does land use and real estate law. And he talks about case law where when there is prejudice, townspeople have the right to overturn the decision of a commission or a committee. And I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs here from some of his opinions. Predisposition has no statutory basis and has evolved on a case-by-case basis. Predisposition means a predetermination of the issues by the authority. That is, showing that a board or commission has made up its mind, essentially decided before the public commitment. It's more difficult to establish predisposition than conflict of interest, but once proven, the result's the same. The action of the board or commission is deemed to be invalid. So let's not go down that path. I think the committee has bias. Select members of the committee have bias. I think others have great intention, but I don't want them to keep working and then just have it overturned at the end of the day. That's what I got.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? All those in favor
I'm sorry.
of the,
The motion is to approve their request for $18,000 for a market research study.
all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Okay, next.
Item 11, Public Works. 11A is discussion and possible action regarding the project on Trinisky Road. Item B is discussion and possible action on the creation of a scenic road committee.
Good evening, Dan Stanton, town engineer for Public Works. Mike Zarba, our director. Just waiting for the spring to warm up here. A short presentation. Give a copy to the reporting secretary. Yeah, that would be. So the Chernitsky Road Bridge, there's the bridge number, we're town 095, just in sequence, I assume alphabetically, this was the 9th bridge. This is currently signed as a one-lane bridge in each direction. So just to give a little bit of project history, the bridge was listed as constructed in 1930. We have some records that indicate in the 80s that it was rehabilitated, but in the summer of 2010, we had a consulting engineering firm inspect, and we, as a result of that inspection list, further developed our capital plan, including the Chernitsky Road Bridge. So in the fall of 2017, we signed a contract with Anchor Engineering, and they began their preliminary engineering phase of the project. So over the winter, we had contact with abutting landowners, specifically the Lundgrens and the Batistas. There's also Reinbergs and the Fogartys on the other two corners of the bridge. So Anchor Engineering continued with their hydraulic work to determine the size of the bridge opening, including a meeting with DEP. We've met in the field, as indicated by some of the residents, and we had an information meeting as a result of those previous meetings and to continue moving the project forward. So those of you that aren't familiar, these are both the north abutment of the bridge. You can see some of the stone structures, some of the concrete abutments, and the bridge rail system, which is approximately, just your typical steel 1.25 inch rail there with the wood posts in place. You can see traffic on the road in that case. So for where we are in the project, our engineer's preliminary engineering plan and cost estimate is at about 50% of the design. So this is a good time to present that to the council, and as a result of our meetings with abutting landowners and some of the neighbors. So what we were proposing is a typical design that we do when we're going forward, which is a 2-lane bridge, which in this case would be made out of a double box culvert. In your information, that is shown, and I'll show that on the next slide. This is proposing 24-foot lane width and an overall of 27.5-foot bridge width, and the estimated cost is $600,000. So we're looking to fund this with local funds, not participate in the state, local, or the federal local bridge program. The existing conditions, which I think are germane to the neighbors' discussions, is the current span is about 14.3 feet, which hydraulically is not adequate. And then the road width is 16.3 feet wide, and the other information there of the total bridge width, which is a relation to the current bridge rail and safety systems that are there. For reference, the road width on either side is significantly wider than the bridge, but not untypical for areas of both Upper Northville and Marial. And as we indicated, there's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. So downstream, coming from top to bottom, what we're proposing is a double box, which the normal flow box is on the right, south, and then additional hydraulic capacity is added by an additional box. This drains about 10.5 miles up through the New Preston and into Morris area.
Katie?
One question, Dan.
Yep.
What, you just said that this is typical of some of our more rural areas. So what's the number one reason that this popped up to be changed from what it is to what so many people don't want?
Sorry about that, obviously.
I think two
Double
factors.
clicking.
The first, the top reason.
Yeah, it's a
What-
structurally deficient bridge and a functionally obsolete bridge.
Okay, and if you were to replace it with a similar width, not make it more of a speedway, which I understand the theory here, why can't you do that? Why do you have to do this 2-lane bridge?
So in short,
Is there a law?
I'm going to give you my opinion.
Is there a law?
My professional opinion.
I understand.
As your
even if
professional
you're not
engineer.
here, but is there a law, a statute?
There is no law. There is no law that says you have to do it.
Okay,
It's not one law that says you have to do it.
okay.
There really boils down to liability. and exposure
How long
and
has this
professional
been
engineering
used?
judgment. When what we're doing is spending public dollars to replace a structure that you basically, in a 150-year time span, get one chance to replace. This is our chance to replace it. We can choose to leave it the same as a one-lane, functionally obsolete bridge, but structurally sound. We could do that. That's one option. You could upgrade it to a two-lane structure that the rest of the roadway exists as. The rest of the road is a two-lane structure, two-lane facility, with a one-lane obstacle in the middle of it, which is the bridge. And the bridge is the most costly item to replace. If you spend the money to upgrade it and make it structurally sound, that's fine, but you're not improving the functionally obsoleteness of it by doing that.
Is it
All you're doing
150
is
years
improving the
old?
structural capacity.
Is it 150 years it's been there?
It's been there 80 years
I mean,
now.
okay,
and
well, you said-
when we install the new one, it'll be there for at least another 75 years.
But you mentioned something about once every 150 years. I just
Correct,
curious.
because
must
it
have
was
had
replaced in
something-
1930, and it's going to maybe get replaced in 2020, and it won't get replaced again until at least the year
So do
2100.
you weigh the safety of making this a two-lane bridge against the safety that now the people who live there and have already made it clear that by it will increase the speed of people on this road and make it a little more dangerous, or a lot more dangerous, depending on who you're talking to. But how do you weigh that? I mean, I'm not challenging that, what you just told me, you're the expert on that. But I want to put my mind around, how do you weigh, and there's also an aesthetic component, which I don't think we should discount. We are a rural town, and we'd like to stay that way. You know, it's the beauty of our town. And,
Sure,
and we do
absolutely.
have areas that are not built up and have they've existed with this bridge all this time. So how do you say that the safety in one place is more important than the safety in the other?
Well, I'm not aware of any data that says people will speed any faster than they're going on the current road. I'm not aware of any facts that would support that or discount that, one way or the other. I don't know that that's
So
an
the
assumption.
The residents' comments.
What
and
the
human
assumption,
nature.
what the assumption is, and the assumption is correct, is they'll continue going the same speeds they're going over the bridge, which they currently can't do. I don't believe there's any factual data to say that they'll go any faster on the road than they're going currently.
Maybe they're going too fast now, is what you're saying.
That's an absolute enforcement issue that, engineering controls don't necessarily exclude from a roadway.
And how is it, I guess, is another thing I've asked the mayor this, how is it that it got to the point that you're ready to do this and residents are up in arms about it without any, I don't know, whatever process? I mean, you choose, I know you have a way you choose what you're going to repair, et cetera. But when residents are making their thoughts known to you,
Sure.
why isn't it taken
Well,
into
let me
consideration?
step back and explain the process. Maybe that will help you understand what we do in designing these. We've come through our budget hearings here to request funds to design a bridge. It's in our 5-year capital plan.
I know that.
You guys approved the funding for engineering services to do this particular bridge. It was in the report. It wasn't blind to anybody. It was open public forum. It was publicly known that we were going to be designing Cherniski Road Bridge. We initiated an RFP process.
Right.
We selected an engineering consultant firm. We signed a contract, as Dan said, in 2017 with them, and issued them a notice to proceed. And what they did, and substantially do through the preliminary engineering phase, is investigate what needs to be done to make the bridge sound and function properly according to the standards that exist. And there are standards that exist out there for bridge design. We do not have, the town of New Milford does not have a separate policy, separate from AASHTO or the state of Connecticut or any other functional agency that has bridge design standards out there. We do not have a separate policy that dictates what the town of New Milford does separately from those.
Where does the
We have-
residents come into it, though? I know it was in the budget. I'm not
Regulations,
knocking
you
that.
said?
No, the residents.
The residents, because
Residents,
it's
yeah,
there.
I'm going to get to that. I will. What we initiate is a preliminary engineering study to find out the conditions of the hydraulics. Dan mentioned the hydraulics. We do some investigatory geotechnical engineering work and determine what types of bridges would be available to be installed there. Once we get some of that preliminary engineering data, we're substantially at the point we're at right now, which is going to a public informational meeting. We had talked to, Dan had mentioned it several times, some residents out there. We had told them we were going to be doing some geotech work. We told them we were going to be doing some survey work, very possibly. They might see flags and people out there. So we certainly made them aware that work would be ongoing in terms of our investigatory process. They had asked us specifically about type of ridge going in. They wanted to meet with us out there. We facilitated at least one field meeting that I'm aware of, maybe two. One with Dan, I believe, initially, and very well maybe a second one. And then subsequent to those meetings, we had enough information to basically hold at least, it was really an informal public informational meeting at this point for the neighbors that had expressed concern to, I'll say, explain to them some of the design features, functions, and things that we go through the engineering process to make those determinations as to the type of structure that can go in, start making some, let's call them aesthetic decisions and other functional decisions that we can look at in the design process, such as the guide rail type that might be installed there, the long term, so that we don't pick it as a standard function, but we recognize that this is a scenic road, has scenic characteristics, and aesthetics would obviously be a big concern to the locals up there. So we wanted to get their input and show them some examples of what could be done.
When did you do that, Mike? That's the thing I'm missing.
We did that in November.
Oh, just this past November?
This past November.
Okay.
Well, just about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
No.
okay. So, because, we've heard from residents recently.
Paul?
So then the meeting that was held on January 31st, 2018, per Mr. Ricchio's letter, what was that meeting?
January 31st, you
I
said?
think that's what the letter said, right? Yeah.
I
didn't read the letter.
I don't know.
We
I didn't
went
really
out
see the
there.
letter,
I just
so.
had like with them for the neighbors, and that's just part of our preliminary engineering process as the engineering department.
You go back to
that there are.
Dan, can you go back to the first slide?
So
That-
as
that
part of
may have
that
been a meeting we-
January 31st meeting, was there an overwhelming position from the neighbors as it related to one lane or two lane?
Yes.
What was that?
Certainly as early as at least, certainly as far back as March, we knew about, their concerns about a one-lane bridge versus two-lane bridge.
So why didn't it come to us then?
I'm sorry?
Considering that it's a scenic road ordinance, which gives a level of discretion and control to the fact of being sensitive to any expansion, whether it be the widening of the roadway or the bridges, and the fact that the public had expressed concern, which you just stated was basically the majority of them.
Yep.
I think before we started the 50% design phase, it would have been great to have you guys come to us. Unfortunately, we didn't hear from the public, but I don't expect them to. I expect their concerns to be issued to your department, and then you guys to say, hey, we got a problem. We think as engineers we should do two lanes, but the neighbors are quite insistent in the meeting that we had that it'd be a one-lane bridge.
Yep.
We're looking to you for guidance before we start spending the taxpayers' money.
Well, let me explain a little bit. Certainly, we haven't done anything advanced beyond preliminary engineering studies, hydraulic opening, foundation types that can go in there, and types of structures that can go in.
Okay.
Forgetting about the width of the road itself, functionally what we've done so far doesn't change that dynamic at all.
So we're just talking.
So all we're doing, when we got to the point of understanding all of that stuff and being able to schedule, I think we had started talking to the mayor about this certainly earlier than that, I believe over the summer, and I think we had some meetings, if I recall, maybe in June, with some of the neighbors up there, and we understood some of the components a little bit better, about what their concerns were, and we started talking to the mayor about that, and just because of time schedules and, functionality of our design engineer and what the information we could get, we obviously just had, several months go by until we could get back to, I'll say, the informational meeting itself. We haven't advanced, any other designs. It's not a, formalized, bridge design at this point. You're seeing preliminary sketches really of a component that we would recommend being installed there in terms of a box culvert structure. We eliminate the deep foundation issues, which can be costly. Probably about double to triple what the estimated cost is for a box culvert project. I believe we're looking at about 1.2 to 1.8 million to do a bridge, conventional bridge, deep foundation structure.
So there's been one accident at that bridge in how many years?
Specifically, there was one accident. This road has several accidents.
No, I'm
that
talking
relate to
specifically
road.
to the bridge or an extremely close proximity.
There's one at the bridge. yes.
Okay.
In how many years? I didn't get an
So
answer.
typically, the history is 5 years that we're looking at, not longer history for that.
And then what was the comment, just so the neighbors can understand? There was a comment that there were other plans for this road. What did that mean, just so we know?
I don't know.
Okay.
You have to ask them. We have no other plans for this road other than to replace the bridge. I have no knowledge of any other, we haven't discussed any other plans for it. We haven't mentioned any other plans for it. And I really don't know where they came from.
So if there were cars, you had mentioned earlier that you didn't see the fact of a 2-lane versus 1-lane bridge slowing people down in any way. So if there's people coming in opposing directions right now, does one of the people have to stop?
Yes, they do.
Okay. So in that instance, there wouldn't be a difference?
There would be a difference
Yeah.
in speeds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if there's more
Going
dangerous,
over
you
the
gotta
bridge.
stop real quickly, I don't know what that's.
I think I
suppose the
mentioned
road's
that.
icy.
Going over the bridge, there's obviously going to be a speed differential from current condition to future condition. What I think I said, or let me re-explain what I said, is there's no evidence that they're going to be going faster than they're currently going on the rest of the road.
If
No,
no one
no,
was
no,
coming.
I'm speaking to the speeds they currently travel over the bridge, a 1-lane bridge.
Yep.
To what the speeds would be if it was a 2-lane bridge. Will those increase, stay the same, or decrease with a 1-lane?
On
or
average, they
2-lane?
would have to increase because it's a 2-lane bridge and they would not have to slow down or stop to go over that bridge.
So
to
then
go over
we're
a future bridge.
increasing speeds in front of neighbors. Okay, just to
Yep.
better understand that.
Mike?
Yeah, a couple questions. So can we replace the existing bridge with a 1-lane bridge as it is?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay, so there's a yes.
Yes.
Number two, I haven't been up there for a little bit. Is there signs on either side of the bridge that says 1-lane bridge ahead?
Yes.
Correct.
And how far away is that sign?
They're generally about 200 feet in each direction
And
and
that's,
adequate
if I
sight
remember
lines
right,
set.
it's a pretty straightforward shot down the
There's about a 350-foot sight line to the west of that up into the curve.
So if the neighbors want a single-lane bridge and it's a scenic road, to me, it's just, if we can just move this along, that would be great.
Well, no, I'm going to give you my professional opinion. I'll state it again. It's the same thing I stated at the public information meeting, Mike, and to the rest of the council. My recommendation to you, and I'm basing it on a Texas Transportation Institute study that I was given by our Technology Transfer Center, meaning our Connecticut T2 Center at the University of Connecticut, had done some research for us. They referenced us to this effective bridge width on highway safety, and I will get the mayor's office a copy of this so you can all see it. I'll give you my scanned, or I'll call it my highlighted notes, but you can read the whole study. It talks about bridge width, effective bridge width. My opinion is that presents a liability to the town of New Milford, and which is why I'm standing here in front of you. Okay? It's a decision you certainly can make. There's no law, regulation, authority against it, but as your engineer giving you advice on liability, I'm telling you that it's a liability based on what I see in the studies out there. You're inherently going to spend public money to not improve what is to be a known problematic safety issue, which is narrowing of a road at a bridge. And when we spend public money to fix that, we have an inherent obligation as engineers to attempt to at least repair those situations and fix them. And if we don't take the opportunity to do that, that's fine, but that's not an engineering decision, that's a policy decision. That's why it's this board's decision to determine how that's going to go. I'm not going to be the decision maker on that. I'm advising you against it, but it's ultimately your decision to make, and you're welcome to make it in whichever way you feel is appropriate. But I believe it's inherent liability to this town and an expense to this town in the long-term longevity of having that kind of infrastructure out there.
So it's proportionately safer bringing the width to match the approach and exit width.
Lisa?
So I totally understand your recommendation and your perspective, and I appreciate that. You've said a couple of times, it's up to you, meaning the town council. Just a couple of points. So this is a designated scenic road, correct?
Correct.
All right, according to our own charter, a narrow road is correlated with high scenic beauty. Designated highways should never be widened unless the amount of traffic as determined by a factual study commissioned by the town of New Milford demands it to keep the road in good and sufficient repair and passable condition. So are we gonna follow our own rules or not? So there's
Well,
number one. Number two.
You're not widening
number
your
two,
road, by the way.
Number two, number two, as Ms. Aruccio said, it's not up to us. If this is a scenic road, the process for alteration or improvements is that we refer the proposal to the planning commission, the mayor approves and appoints a committee to advise the town council on the alteration being proposed and any alternative solutions. And it's very specific about how many people, what they do, and how they come up to their decision. So really the motion on the table is, are we moving this forward to the planning commission, and is Mayor Bass appointing a committee to look into this matter as recommended by our Director of Public Works?
Tom?
It's not a motion, I'm just saying,
No.
let's, you know, here's our rules, let's follow our rules.
Right.
Tom?
You know, I understand the residents' concerns up there, but to replace the bridge as speed control, as traffic control, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You're taking a two-lane bridge and for a short period of time compressing that. Now, we may have only had one accident in the last few years, but you have two young, inexperienced drivers come down that hill on a snowy day. Nobody knows who's going to stop. What's going to happen at that bridge? I mean, I agree with you. That road's got to slow down. I disagree with you. I agree with you. But to use the bridge as the method to slow it down doesn't make any sense. It's not going to make the road any less scenic because the road is a little wider at the bridge. The bridge is already wide. We just had a lengthy conversation about safety in town. What about fire trucks? Suppose we got multiple fire trucks going up there to try to go over that bridge.
In opposite directions?
No, you've got fire trucks going up. No, you got fire trucks going up the hill and people coming maybe from that area going down the hill. Councilman Szymanski. I mean, there's some sort of, I mean, I agree with you. We need to slow that road down. Why don't we put up a camera and snap people and send people tickets in the mail like they do around the country when you're flying down any sort of road? I mean, there's got to be a method. There's got to be a method in which to do this that's not going to prohibit us from replacing a bridge that, according to our engineer's opinion, is unsafe. I mean, I understand both sides of the argument, and I'm not trying to increase traffic up there. I live up in that region. We want it nice and quiet, but I think it also should be safe at the same time. Maybe there's another method to slow the cars down, which I think needs to happen anyway. We have the chief of police here. We need a way to slow that road down so that we're not centering the whole argument on replacing the bridge because the road's got to be slower.
Mike?
Do you want to quick?
Yeah, mine's just quick. So you said we weren't widening the road, but it's a 24-foot wide bridge. So what's the travel way then? Because the road's 23 feet on the west approach and 21 feet on the west approach. So are we widening the road in that
The
area as
approaches
well?
would be widened, you're
As well?
correct, to tapered back to the existing road, but,
Okay.
you know, this is a bridge project, it's not a road project.
But we would be
So
widening.
we're
the
not
road.
doing, other than the couple hundred feet of approaches, we're not doing any more road work than, you know, what would be required for the bridge itself.
Real quick, well, a couple of points, but first one is this bridge has to be replaced. Is it at that point where it's deemed unsafe or will be unsafe soon?
Correct, that's
Okay.
the
All right, so then I have a question to everybody here that wants to keep it for safety reasons. Is there anywhere else in town where we took a road and made it one lane for a small period of time and then widened it to 2 lanes just to slow down traffic? At Canterbury School, we put in speed bumps. We didn't take the lane and put it into one. So I get everyone's concerned, but it is definitely more safe to have the road continue the same width throughout than it is to shrink it. I understand about the other thing about shrinking a road because it's a scenic road, but I don't know anywhere else in town where we take a 2-lane road, bring it to 1 lane, and then back to 2 lane to control traffic.
Sorry, that wasn't my point. My point is, we can sit here and debate it all night. It's not up to us. We gotta go,
That's right.
we gotta go
All
to,
right.
refer to planning,
Thank you.
appoint a
Right, we
committee,
have to
and
follow
they're gonna
the
come back with a recommendation.
We need
And then you can ask.
My question has nothing to do with that.
Doug?
So, obviously, Mike and Dan, I value your opinion. You guys are way smarter than I'll ever be, but I'm looking at what Lisa had mentioned, Councilman here, about the process. Submitting the proposal, then on the next council meeting, the mayor will set up a commission, and then it has to go through the process. So I think we have to go by the rules regardless of how we feel about the road being wider, smaller, whatever, there's a process. So at the end of the process, there'll be a decision. Can't be made tonight, it won't be made at the next meeting, but it has to be made by commission, and then refers back to us, and then we'll go there. But to sit here and argue about a road being wider or smaller, there's a process we have to do, so I think we need to move forward.
It's
and
a
get this-
scenic road.
Right, because it has its specifics, it's different than a regular road, it's a scenic road. I'm glad that the public brought it up and made my attention, because I never knew about this as well. Maybe a lot of us in the room don't know as much.
It's been a significant period of time.
Right.
Since
My last question.
had
Mike,
a scenic road.
just have a question, this is just for future reference. So in your process, which I know you follow it perfectly right, and you did have a meeting with the residents, were the residents really aware as a group? I don't know how many people you let know that this is happening. You said you met some people on site or whatever. But are all the people who live on the road notified to the point that they would realize, and I don't think they want you to leave it that as a way to control traffic. I think there's a lot of reasons they want to keep it that way. But is there a way in our process, or could you somehow put in our process when this comes up? We have a lot of places in this town that are like that. And we have residents who are upset, and I think that they need to be heard. Obviously, I think you do too. But maybe the process could be just a little more thorough so that it isn't down to each hour when they're here pleading for their neighborhood and their children not to get run over and all of that. It doesn't need to come to this, right?
Public notification.
So, yeah,
Well-
do you publicly notify, is it a letter to everybody? Or?
We didn't, so try to explain again what we did with this particular bridge. We did not hold a formal public informational meeting. We held a local public information meeting. This was very specific to the residents that had expressed concern to us that we had been meeting with out there over a period of months, as we had talked about as early as
So
at
it
least
wasn't a
as back as
formal, like
March.
you usually do.
We normally would publish a notice in the paper
Yeah, right.
and post, and we have been posting, I believe, at many of our other projects you might have seen, but we post a public hearing sign effectively, or a public informational meeting to be held at a particular location at a time, so that at least passerbys and people that read the paper for public notices can show up at will as well. I mean, we don't exclude or, encourage any particular party, one way or the other, to come, but, we try to get everybody's involvement that has an interest in it.
Can we move this on,
Wait,
Mr. Mayor, please?
So we have a,
Just one quick thing to add is, with this process proceeds, to Lisa's point, standards for alteration widths. There's no discretion, and the town attorney should give us an opinion on this. Designated highways should never be widened unless the amount of traffic, which would mean volume, as determined by a factual study commissioned by the town of New Milford, which we haven't done, demands it to keep the road in good and sufficient repair and passable condition. Doesn't
Where's
say
the
any-
money coming?
Doesn't say anything about safety.
You already read it.
Correct,
Come
but it
on,
doesn't say
guys,
anything
let's
about
move
safety.
this along.
it doesn't say anything about safety, Mrs. Spring, so, okay. So we have a motion.
Any other discussion?
What is the
There is no
motion?
motion.
Yeah.
Right,
There is
no,
no
sorry,
motion.
right, there wasn't, it was discussion.
So,
The
if I could
motion
just, if I could just take everybody's just for a moment, we're gonna follow the process, right? So here's the process. Alteration or improvement procedure. This is our charter, right? The alteration or improvement of a designated scenic road shall be determined by the town council. That's this body right here. Any proposal for alteration or improvement, whether public or private, by public or private applicant, shall be submitted to the town council, along with a suitable map. Do we have a suitable map today?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if we have a map.
Showing in detail the proposed alteration or improvement. At its next regularly scheduled meeting after submission of the proposal, so that's our January meeting, the town council shall refer the proposal to the Planning Commission. And the mayor, with the approval of the council, shall, pursuant to the charter, appoint a committee to advise the town council on the alterations or improvements being proposed in any alternative solution. The advisory committee, this will dovetail into the next
Yes.
part of it, which was the creation of the Scenic Road Committee specifically for this road. Shall appoint a committee to advise the council on the alterations or improvements being proposed and any alternative solutions.
Okay.
The advisory committee shall consist of 6 electors of the town and shall include 1 lucky member of the town council, a lucky member of the planning commission, Mike, Public Works Director, or his designee, the town Director of Community Planning or Economic Development, or if that position is not filled, if he or she is not elected of the town, such other member duly appointed, and 2 representatives of existing landowners along the scenic road. The mayor shall, by giving reasonable written notice to all existing landowners along the scenic road, call and chair a meeting of the landowners, at which the landowners present shall select their 2 representatives. So that to me is the clear path of how we're going to start doing this.
So moved.
Okay? So, are we all?
All right.
Yes, Matt, you're looking confused.
No, just for the record, it's the code of ordinances, not the charter.
Code of ordinance is fine, thank you. Okay, so, we all are in agreement, that's how we're going to follow the process.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you.
So
So we don't need a motion.
we do not, no. But do we need to say that we're moving this forward to the meeting regularly?
They just said they did.
January? That's all you need to do?
But we don't do that
That's in
till
its next regularly scheduled
regular
meeting, that's
meeting.
next time.
Right, okay.
All right,
All right.
so, next is, we already handled B as well, which is the
Right.
Scenic Road Committee, and we'll be handling it at the next meeting. Okay?
And that lucky council member will put your name.
Thank you. Yep.
Item
Thank
12, move to authorize the mayor to call a special town meeting for 6:15 PM on January 14th, that should be 2019, in the E. Paul Martin Room of the Town Hall, 10 Main Street, Connecticut, New Milford, Connecticut. Consider the following. A, an easement with respect to installation and maintenance of traffic signalization devices at the intersection of Bridge and Railroad as requested by the Connecticut Department of Transportation. And B, an easement acquiring construction access for bridge rehabilitation at the intersection of Bridge Street and Young Field Road as requested by the Connecticut Department of Transportation.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 13, discussion and possible action for Pettibone fee and rental use and procedure.
So I had a councilman ask for this to be put on the agenda concerning the fee schedules of this comparative to the other buildings in town, which was in your handout. So it shows the current rates for John Pettibone, the Max, and the school itself, which are on here.
Can we speak to it?
Yep.
Oh, I was going to ask a question.
No, but let me just, so this is my proposal. So just to give the background, so it looks like this in your packets, current and proposed. This is on John Pettibone. As long as we are, dare I say, in limbo, there are agencies in there, there are people using the facility, let's get somebody to cover the utilities, and while we figure out what we're trying to do, and be fiscally responsible. So what I did was I looked at the Board of Ed rates, and tried to normalize a little bit closer to what they do, why recreate the wheel. And so the only free, quote unquote, free groups would be emergency services. Everybody else pays something, number one. And number two, a modification was made after I threw the proposal forward. I would actually recommend that we have one point of contact for organizing rentals, because in my world, a matrix organization typically doesn't work, especially when you've got money changing hands, so you want just one point of contact. So we can track how many rentals there are, we can track how much money's coming in, people aren't confused as to who's doing what. And that's it, I took a stab at it. I'm open to any suggestions, but that was kind of the thought process behind it.
Katie?
Yes, and I appreciate that you did, and most of this is just wonderful. There are a few things that I think we should go over as far as some of these groups would not really be able to put $250 down and not get it back. You know, Girl Scout troop, you'd have to hold the check, which again, I agree with you, one person should handle this. But one of the things that's kind of important here is when the cafeteria or any part of the building is used, and you have a note here about having the facilities maintenance people okay it. If you're, I've been in there in groups, and say there's coffee and cake and cookies on Saturday and they leave at 3 o'clock, and no one comes in to look at that building, that room until Monday. I mean, that's a mouse heaven waiting to happen. And then if we have someone from facilities come in on a Saturday or a Sunday or after 4:30, we're talking about a minimum number of hours and a cost, I believe we said about $120 or so, which again would be a burden on some of these, you know, just to take the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts to start with. So while I do believe that we need to take this away from costing the town, the mayor's in the process of coming up with the finance department with a per square foot cost for our utilities and et cetera, which along with a deposit, so to speak, I'd like to see what that is and how that works out for the spaces that are able to be rented. And maybe we can make a coalesce the two things, because what's existing in our other facilities is working. But some of these things, like the high fee for, you know, what you call it, cancellation fee, or was that one of them? Security deposit.
I didn't change that. That was all the same policy that we currently have in place.
Yeah, some of that is in place in the paper, but it doesn't necessarily happen. And we want to make it equitable for everyone, you know, and make it across the board, because we have new people, new groups using that building who were not using these other facilities before. One of the reasons is there's no cost. And I think we should take a look at who uses it and look at some of the ways we can make it a little less impactful on the budgets of groups who don't have excess money sitting there, and how we work out the facility person checking on what's happened. This is a few things that I thought of when I looked it over. Otherwise, I mean, I think it's good to include the people who are there, the for-profits as well as the non-profits.
Dr. Bone?
Couple things I just wanted to clarify in this. You know, Park and Rec does facility requests all the time, so this is just kind of stuff they do every single month. So I don't see any issue with just giving this to Park and Rec and having them deal with it, and not having the mayor's office deal with it.
So right now, Dr. Moe, just so you know, the mayor's office deals with part of it.
Right.
And Park and Rec, and Park and Rec didn't want the additional.
They didn't want it?
No.
Nope.
Yeah,
No, they expressed that to me too.
Under the following groups and organizations shall be exempt, governmental entities needs to be specified. Does that include federal, state?
Like CERT?
No, civil defense, Red Cross, emergency, and then, you know, the town committee meetings, regular meetings. I lifted that right out of the BOE language.
Just municipal?
This is municipal, yeah.
Just municipal, that should be
Yep.
clarified. Towards the bottom, the bullet points, next last bullet point. Will be used on any walls, add comma, windows, comma, floors, comma,
Wait,
ceilings.
where's the table? Hold on.
Facility restrictions. There are 6 bullet points. The
Yeah.
next last bullet point.
Gotcha.
No tax, duct tape, masking tape, etc. will be used on any walls.
Yep.
Add comma, windows, comma, floors, comma, ceilings.
Any surface?
How about just put will be used, period. On surfaces.
Well, all right, on surfaces, but I think it needs to be very, very
Specific?
clear and
Okay.
very specific.
Okay.
On the back.
So,
Oh.
So this is for any room there, like one of those spare classrooms?
Well, that's
No, those are not,
the
no,
problem.
those are not rented out. Those are not.
Okay.
It's the cafeteria the gymnasium, and the old band room.
Those cannot be rented out.
No, those are the three.
Those are the
that-
three that the fire marshal's cleared.
Did you have any? Okay.
No, and we brought this up in the Park and Rec, believe it or not, there are some zoning restrictions where we can only meet in 2 places in the whole school. That's a Park and Rec, when we have our meetings. It's either the cafeteria, and if that's not used, we're sitting in a small room. We can't even use another room.
What
that's
room is
covered.
that you're sitting in?
Small
It's
band room, say
the
the small,
far
say the
room
small
with-
band
yeah.
room.
Better be the
Far
band
end
room.
of the-
Yeah,
the
far room and everything. So there's a zoning issue. There's also facilities where on the weekends, if somebody wants to use it, somebody's got to open and close the place. Somebody's got to turn the lights on. Somebody's got to make sure things are put away. Somebody got to do it. And then Dr. Mullen knows with the Park and Rec, most of the stuff we approve is outside. It's parks.
Yes.
So this is a burden that you're putting on the Park and Rec Board. We didn't want to be in charge of this whole building. You got people running around, doors are open, you know, there's other places where construction's going on, so this is opening up a Pandora's box. If you start renting it out to certain organizations on off hours and weekends, then you're gonna have to, again, facilities where you go to the high school and you have to use a turf field, well, you have to have mandatory by the union, you have to have a person there.
But they're using it now. They're just
Yeah,
not
they're
paying
using
for
it
it.
now, we're just not getting a money for it.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that it's gonna be more costly, even though I don't think this is gonna cover enough if you need to have people there on the weekends and stuff to take care of it and open and close it as
Well,
opposed.
they're getting the key to get in there now.
Well, again,
I'm just
now you're
telling
talking
you what
about an
happens.
inside facility, not an outside facility. Things happen different inside than they do outside.
Right.
Accountability, construction, whatever it is. You know, doors are open, now you have other people walking in. It's a community center. You can have other groups walking in there.
Is it a
prior,
Is it?
but prior to
I'm
this.
just telling you, you have
Doug,
people walking the halls
Yeah.
and all the time over there.
If there's a fee, then perhaps they'll just go back to where they were before they were here. Because this is gonna add a little bit more money than what they had if they were going to the Max. The Max has lost some of their revenue because a lot of groups are going over to the Pettibone building because it is free.
My concern, it's not a controlled atmosphere in a huge building. where
No,
you're having
it's
more
not,
than-
and there's only one
And
place
that's my
that's cordoned
concern.
off. That's
You
right.
have kids, maybe someone brings some kids. It's a big building. And there's parts of it that are dangerous, parts of it have construction. And that's my worry, and that's why when we had the Park and Rec meeting, I go, there's no way we can do all this. There's no way we can oversee all this. So you can put a number on whatever you want to put a number on it and say that's the rental. I'm concerned about what happens inside the building when they're renting. That's all. There's nobody in there to supervise and in charge as opposed to sitting there.
I think we should, maybe get a few
Anybody
people-
have anything else?
Could I make a suggestion, Mayor? We get a few people together to, a couple, 3 of us, or somebody to come and, maybe somebody from Parks and Rec, to talk about this and what would be usable, practical. What do you
I mean,
think?
there's concerns. You have the social services, you have the youth center.
Well, they're blocked,
I understand they're
you
blocked.
can't get into them, so that's the one good thing. But I know, I've been there with groups, the kids run everywhere.
I
Is it
walked
the-
through that whole building on Friday and nobody saw me for an hour.
Is it the council's pleasure to
What do you think?
take the suggestion of Councilman Francis?
Yes.
Three,
So long as we go.
3 or 4 people
Sure.
get together, bring it back?
Sure.
Do we have a Parks and Rec person?
Yep.
Mike's gonna be on it? You said you're gonna be
No,
on
my
it?
hands I'm underneath my legs.
I'll be on it.
You're
Doug
Parks
said he'd
and
be
Rec.
on it?
I'll do it.
Katie will be on it?
Do it.
Lisa?
Yep.
All right, we got our 3. Okay.
Do we need to make an official motion on that?
No.
No, I only had it for discussion and absent action. So you want to let that go. And now, we're
And we'll bring it
moving
back.
to item 14.
Last one, which is
We go into
executive session.
executive session.
Forgot about that. Okay.
Rolling.
Move to return to regular session, and note that during executive session, no motions were made or votes taken. Everybody, okay? All right. Okay, so we're going to make a motion, item 14. Move to take action on the following job descriptions, item 8, A, C, D, E, and F. Sorry, 14. Sorry, item 14.
We're not doing the one.
I said
Yeah.
14, C, D, E, and F.
Yeah. Second.
Any discussion?
No C.
No C?
That's Blake.
That's the
Sorry.
old one,
Oh, then why is it on here? Excuse me.
because it's old.
Okay, I amend my motion to say item 14,
D, E.
item D, E, and F.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, we have one more thing, Walter. We need
One
to postpone.
more thing.
We have to, don't we have to postpone those?
No, it's discussion. We had discussion. There's no action on
No
it.
action.
Okay,
All done.
there you go.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Christmas, everybody.